Hold on. Okay. It's Tuesday. It is Tuesday. I had a moment where I was like, are we sure it's not Monday? Are we sure this isn't the wrong day? It's not. It's Tuesday. I just checked. How are you? Glad to see you. I like this cat hoodie. It's my new favorite thing. You're sick. Awesome. Not great. Drink lots of fluids. Stay hydrated. Get lots of rest. Oh, God. An insomniac. You have no idea how much I feel that. I did get 5 hours like the other night, and I felt super accomplished. Yeah, Nodi was here last time. I want to see if we can start doing that on like a bi-weekly basis. Like every other week, Nodi joins me. That would be super dope. Not gonna lie, we really miss recording with each other. We just don't have the time like we used to. So if we can squeeze it in, I think that's what we're gonna try and do. Hello. Handsome's fine. Hello, is Lady Aoife here? Lady Aoife, where you at? Oh, the mosquitoes love me. I don't even know if you can see this, but like all these marks is just mosquitoes. It's been terrible. Kicking you from TikTok, Discord? What's happening? Lady Aoife, there you are. Lady Aoife, I'm calling you out again, once again. Sent me coffee. Sending me coffee all the time. I don't deserve it. So, thank you. And I'm really excited about this one. Because I don't know if you can read it. It might be backwards and the lighting might be terrible. But it's another fruity one. But I love passion fruit anything. So, it's called the Luminosa Blend. And it's passion flower and stone fruit. So I'm really excited. It's a light roast. I haven't gotten to make it yet because I already made coffee by the time that I picked it up. So I'm going to try it tomorrow. I'll get back to you. But I'm really excited to try it. So thank you once again very much for the coffee. And everybody who always sends me coffee, thank you, Swiftblood. Y'all keeping me caffeinated till the end of time. It does sound good. I'm really excited about this one. I already have my coffee for today, though, so I was like, well, I already have a full pot. I'm not going to throw out any strange brew. So I was like, I can't just get rid of this pot. I'm going to have to suck it down and see what I'm working with later. No, it's a Shinzo cup. Don't you know what channel this is? Sorry. This is almost an entirely Shinzo channel at this point. I do cosplay other people, I promise. I just haven't had the motivation or the tools to revamp the ones that I want to do. I need to redo my Dobby. Nah, you're good. I need to redo my Dobby. I do know that. I haven't. I finally got Johanna styled, and then I was like, but wait. And then I have to get shots for Johannes too, so like, I have to get a bunch of, yeah. Cats everywhere. Cats are my favorite. Everybody on this channel knows, we stan cats here. You got cats? Tag me in your cat content. If you're making cat content, tell me about it. I want to know about your cats. What are your cats' names? What do they look like? How do they act? What are they like? I love all your cats. I love all your cats. Insomniac tags me in stuff about their cats a lot. And I love it. It's the best thing ever. No, I didn't get to check redacted today because I've been editing audio trying to get stuff done all day. I had a video that we recorded last week that we were all goofing around about, and I was going to edit it, and apparently when we tried to upload it, it got copyright strike, but there was no copyright material. Like, we even checked the music, it was open source, so I'm very confused why that happened. Unsure, unclear. And then I was trying to get audio synced for today because I had audio lined up that I wanted to do, but it's not on TikTok. So I had to, and TikTok, as you know, really doesn't like new source material. So I have to put a video to that sound, upload it to TikTok, post it to myself, and then take the sound, favorite it, go ahead, make a video with the sound. And then it didn't even want to do that because it was like, it's over a minute, so the sound won't... Okay. Oh, no. Uno, one moment. Nope, stop. My laptop's making noises. So I had to use the laptop, and it was just, it was a whole big mess of me trying to get this sound on TikTok. I finally did it, but it took a while. Hi. Aw, thank you, Todoroki. Hi. Yeah, what is with the copyright strikes? And we checked the material. It's supposed to be open source, so I'm very confused. Nody's probably going to be upset when I get a chance to tell them. Because we had so much fun doing this nonsense video that took like 20 minutes. We shot it so fast because we were just goofing around. It was kind of a goof-off video, but it was really funny. And it's just got one track, but it tagged copyright strikes for like 5 separate artists, and we were like, none of them are even the artist. And all this is open source. I don't understand. Anyway, so I've been dealing with TikTok edit nonsense BS for 2 videos. This was just stuff for 2 videos. And it took me all day, and I've accomplished nothing, so... If you've ever wondered why cosplayers don't crank out more content, this is why. Because of bullshit like this. Oh, thank you for the compliment. Also, Aizawa as a favorite is a good choice. Solid choice. Yeah, they're like copyright striking a lot of nonsense. I have had water. I don't have any right now. I have a coffee. But I did have some this morning when I worked out. I have not seen the new Arkham Horror game. Now I'm excited. That sounds awesome. And I do want to play the new game. But I'm excited about the game. Yeah, like they're copyright striking everything, and I am unsure what's happening. I also realized that they used to have, not to dig into other cosplayers' business. I just want to preface this by accompanying this with an anecdote. But they used to have protections for if people were stealing content or pretending to be another person, open for all users. They don't anymore. They only have that report faculty for people who are verified. In other words, celebrities. They only have that feature for celebrities now. And I know this because I don't know if you've seen... or if you follow the Mario lore couple, Ken and Cade, Love Bunny Cosplay and Dino Grave. I don't know if you follow them, but they do a lot of Mario content cosplay. And someone had made a fake account saying that Cade made a bunch of allegations about Cade that were not true, and then set up a GoFundMe, which is not only harmful misinformation, but an active scam, and is pretending to be Ken. And a bunch of people tried to report it, and people in the comments are like, we know this isn't true, we know this is fake, we know this isn't really... And people tried to report it. I tried to report it. And when you go to report, like, pretending to be someone else, you have to type in the user. It won't let you type in the user unless they're verified anymore. So they just don't have protection for normal people. Cool. Good luck, TikTok. You're really killing the game. Anyway. That's all for me complaining. And not to dig into other cosplayers' business, because I don't normally do that. I was just trying to support and, like, report the account, and it wouldn't let me tag them. Because that's BS. Come on. It's one thing to have your content stolen, and I'm not saying that's not, like a big thing for cosplayers. There's a lot of cosplayers who get their content stolen, and that's stressful enough in itself. But then making the allegation that someone else's partner is actively abusive, physically, mentally, emotionally, and then saying that you're trying to leave them and setting up a GoFundMe and pretending to be that person is, not only does it scam people out of money for anybody who does fall for it, it's also really harmful to the reputation of the person who's also making content with them continuously. They both made a video about it the other day. It was extremely hurtful to Cade, and, like, I'm not sure if anything has been done about it. I haven't checked on it today, but it was a big deal. Thank you for the compliment about my piercings. I also like them. But yeah, there should be more protection for normal people just using TikTok. Like, if someone... Oh, I know. They look so sad. And he was like, I've actually been through a lot of stuff, and, like, this was extremely hurtful. And I was like, oh no, Cade. Oh. Because they are lovely. I've followed them since I started on TikTok, and I absolutely love their content. And they are adorable together. And not that, you know, like, I have any right to comment on anybody else's relationship, but they appear to be happy together. Like, you don't make content with someone for that long and, like, have that much fun doing it if you're in an abusive relationship. You just don't. You stop making content with them. Like, it just doesn't make sense. But I feel really bad for Cade and Ken going through all this, and I feel like there should be more protection for content creators, and it feels like they're just stripping us of what little protection we did have. Like, if someone wanted to come up and steal my identity off TikTok right now and start reposting all my content, that's not an invitation, by the way, but... Oh, no one's actually being abused. There's not any actual abuse talk. I'm very sorry for bringing that up. But there were allegations, unfair allegations, that have since been discredited by both people involved. But I'm more worried about the scam. How many people fell for that? How many people gave this stranger money thinking someone was in trouble? Oh, thank you for the corgi. But how many people lost money because they fell for that? Because they cared. Because some people have a big heart and want to help, and would definitely, if they heard someone was going through something like that, contribute money. How many people lost their money? How's Cade feeling? No one ever thinks about that stuff, and then you can't report it. I reported it, and unless I'm much mistaken, they were like, we didn't find any violation. And I was like, you didn't. Because I couldn't report it for stolen identity. So I reported it for harmful misinformation. But it still is up as far as I know. I haven't checked today, like I said. But it didn't matter that I reported it, even though it is harmful misinformation, I would say. But I don't know what TikTok's going on right now. A lot of stuff is changing, and it's worrisome. I'm going to keep trucking and doing my thing for as long as I'm capable of doing so. But some people may not be able to like easily sidestep stuff. Bigger content creators that are just on like the edge of like, they're not verified, so they're still not big enough for anyone to care, but they're just big enough where too many people care, and people steal their content and just run and make their own accounts and impersonate them, and nobody cares. But I think there's going to be more prevalence in that of people scamming people out of money. And I feel like that's... I have one sock account. I would tell you if I made another one. You know what I mean? Because I don't want anybody impersonating me and then making a GoFundMe or whatever and telling you to give them money. And then... and especially under those set of circumstances, specifically for Ken and Cade, harmful, hurtful. Anyway, that's all I have to say about it. Lady Eva, come back. I'm sorry. I don't want to run you off. Somebody tell Lady Eva to come back in. We're done. We're done, I promise. I'm off my soapbox. That is my big rant for today. And that's all I gotta say about that. Hello. How many people are in here? Is Lady Eva back? I'm sorry, Lady Eva. Tell Lady Eva I'm sorry. How many people are in here? Swiftblood, you still in here? Is Ray in here? How many people did I run off? Yes, I'm sorry. How many people did I run off? I'm done talking about it. I'm sorry. I should have put a warning on that before. Okay. There was no actual, like... So I didn't think to put a trigger on it, but I'm sorry. And I don't want to run anybody off. I'm glad you're back. I think we're all back. Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm done with my soapbox. I just want to feel safe. Okay. Hi. Oh, thank you for the compliment about the cosplay. Are we all back? Are we good? Are we good? How many people are in here who didn't look at the title of the live? If you're in here and you know what we do here, twos in the chat. I haven't even asked if y'all are ready yet, and you're already twoing all across the chat. Two. I think it's really funny because if you haven't been here and you don't know what's going on, and you just see a bunch of twos in the chat, and you didn't read the title of this live, and you don't know what we do, you're probably going to be very confused right about now, because This isn't a cosplay live where I do my makeup or I just sit and chit chat and put on music and chill here and not do anything. That isn't what we do. And I'm not banging any cosplayers that do that. You keep doing your thing. I like your chill vibe times. But this isn't chill vibe times, is it? It's not chill vibe times. It's sleepy story time. I'm Shinzo, and this is Storytime with Shinzo, and we're gonna read a book, because that's what we do every week on Tuesday, at right around now. It's horse time, yeah. And if you don't know what we're reading the Brothers Cabal series, and this is the 4th book in the series. Yes, you came in on book 4. What does that say about you? Go back. Go to my profile, and you want to hit the YouTube link, and you're going to find the rest of the books there, except for last week's chapter, which I haven't uploaded yet. But it's coming, and you can catch up and know what's going on. And I'll go ahead and give all of you all a recap for, if you don't know what happened last time. Horst escaped the castle with the D Society in tow, and as they were leaving, the castle starts glowing violet, and it just keeps growing and growing until some weird creatures come out, and they look real crazy because they shouldn't exist. They're phantom nightmares that came out of the ether, and they're completely black, and their skin's made of acid, and they don't have any wings, but they can fly and screech and scream with no mouths. And when you burst them open, apparently there's acid sacs in there, and that's how they die. Horst found that out, but he burned half his skin off. So we left there, and they were just at the point where they thought they were in the clear because they found a train. It is pretty Stranger Things vibey. So now we have Horst and the D Society members who have found a train and are trying to make their getaway with the train. And we'll see how that goes here shortly. Who's ready to go? I know y'all already posted a bunch of 2s, but I'm just going to check, make sure that we're still good. I'm going to plug my phone in. Yeah, it's real nuts. Skin's made of acid. Real crazy looking. It's gonna be a fun time. Okay. And also, if you're new and I don't say anything for a while, it's because I'm looking down at the page and I can't respond to you. But if you have any questions, you can always ask one of our many mods. If you say something or ask a question I won't be able to answer until the intermission. Yes, there's an intermission. We read 2 chapters. And if you give me any gifts, I thank you in advance. Because I probably won't notice. Anyway, thank you. Chapter 8, in which we encounter ladies wearing trousers. The lorry arrived at the base of the rail berm in a spray of gravel as the mayor jerked the wheel sideways and they skidded to a halt. The 2 cigarette smokers Horst had spotted on the approach looked down at them in not so much astonishment as suspicion. Horst was slightly surprised himself to discover both were women, although not nearly as surprised as the Major was at a telling detail that had escaped Horst. "Good Lord," said the Major as he jumped down from the driver's position to land with a crunch on the gravel track. "Ladies in trousers!" They were indeed, and shamefully, wearing trousers. Both were in their mid-20s, and both would not have been suitable for polite society. Wanton smoking aside, they were dressed in what appeared to be male work clothes, one in dungarees and the other in farming trousers of denim cloth, and wearing a short brown leather jacket of the type worn by pilots. Beneath it were visible a checked shirt and neckerchief. Neither of the pair were wearing nice shoes either, instead seeking to compound their crimes against femininity by wearing work boots in one case and what looked like shockingly army boots on the other. "They're lesbians," said the Major in a ghastly whisper. He looked back up the meadow, searching for their pursuers. He was plainly unsure which fate was worse. While the Major agonized over whether death by otherworldly creature or associating with ladies in sensible shoes would be more injurious, Alicia called up to them. "We have a wounded man, and—" She looked back at an exclamation from the Major. The two remaining creatures were rising above the embankment by the shattered section of fence across the meadow, clearly visible in the moonlight. Alicia looked desperately up at the women. "Please, we're all in danger!" The woman in the flying jacket squinted across the meadow and then, demonstrating the depths of her sapphic depravity by not swooning on the spot, threw her cigarette stub to the floor and snapped to her fellow. "Tell the driver to get this thing rolling now!" As the dungareed woman ran along toward the locomotive, the leather-jacketed woman ran back a few windows along the sleeper car before pounding furiously on its side. After a brief moment, the narrow ventilator window popped open. "What the hell is it, Boom?" demanded a female voice. This one had an American accent, convincing the Major that it was possible for things to get worse after all. The woman in the leather jacket, Boom, never took her eyes off the creatures, already a quarter of the way across the meadow and closing. "We have company, boss." "What kind of company?" "Bad company. The worst." The window's roller shutter shot up to reveal a woman in her mid-30s, disheveled and pulling on a dressing gown over pajamas. She leaned close to the open window and looked up the meadow. "God damn it!" she snarled, sounding more peeved than affrighted. "What in creation are those?" "Really dangerous," shouted Alicia. "Please, we need help." "Boss," looking down, noticing them for the first time, she quickly took in Horst and D Society survivors, and the slight wince when she saw Richard carried in Horst's arms showed she knew a man at the edge of death when she saw one, and that it was not a new experience to her. "Get him aboard! Wake everyone and tell him to be ready!" She vanished into the gloom beyond the glass. "Come on!" shouted Boom at Horst and the others. "Don't you want to live?" And they stumbled up the embankment onto the earthwork to where Boom was waiting by an open door where, as they arrived, another woman was coming out. She, too, appeared to have been in slumber, and she, too, was unconventionally dressed in a pair of denim trousers, hastily pulled on work boots, their laces flailing, and a pajama top over which she wore a navy surplus pea coat. She was also sporting a pump-action shotgun. As she jumped down beside them, the Major was horrified to note that not only was she yet another member of what was clearly some dreadful hive of perversity, but that she wasn't even a Caucasian pervert. Between the short hair, shotgun, and the epicanthic folds of the inscrutable Oriental, he was quite at a loss. "What the hell are those?" she demanded it in an American accent. "Weird stuff, Mink," answered Boom. The abominations were still closing now, and only 100 yards away. "Dangerous, weird stuff." "Interesting," said Mink, and pumped a shell into the chamber. "I'll let him get a bit closer. Choke's open on this thing." Alicia looked at the shotgun, and then the 9mm semi-automatic that had appeared in Boom's hand, apparently stowed in a shoulder holster. "You've all got guns?" Boom had climbed into the train, but Mink remained, watching the abominations with a clear eye. "Oh, yeah. This is bandit country all around these parts," she said. "You're a fool if you don't plan for trouble." "We have weapons, but no ammunition left," explained the professor. "If we could reload—" Mink jerked her head back toward the train, never once looking away from the approaching enemy. "Follow Boom." Aboard the train, the corridor ran down the side away from the meadow. The carriage had certainly seen better days. The carpet was worn down to the boards in several places. The woodwork was scuffed and scratched, and half the light fittings were devoid of bulbs. Whatever kind of circus this was, lucrative seemed unlikely to be its crowning adjective. As the group led by Alicia, the Major having passed the role of pathfinder to her in case they should run into any other women in the night attire, moved forward. There were shouts and responses coming fore and aft. All the Major noted inwardly with a sense of moral defeat were female. A door opened inward to their left, and the woman Boom had called Boss stepped out. She was in the latter stages of buttoning up some sort of one-piece boiler suit, but the simplicity of its design was offset by the cloth being of a striking crimson, and the cut allowing for a double-breasted front. She left the flap of cloth across her upper chest loose and shrugged into the shoulder holster she'd had hanging from one elbow while attending to the buttons. "Who are you people?" she demanded. "And what are those things?" The sound of a shotgun firing slow and considered shots 2 seconds apart stopped the dialogue before it had even begun. The woman gave them a wary glance, then turned her back on them, drawing her handgun and working the slide as she went. "It's an odd sort of circus, isn't it?" said the professor. "I've seen odder," replied Horst. The woman had left the door of her compartment swinging, and he shoved it open with his foot before carrying in Richard. "You can't just go into a lady's bedroom," said the Major, still finding some deep reserves of propriety that had not yet been scandalized in the last few minutes. The room was not an obvious lady's boudoir, it had to be admitted. The impression it engendered was somewhere between the dressing room of an actress and a light engineering workshop. A clothes rack of the type usually found in second-hand shops, bare gray steel tubes arranged upon casters, was in one corner, burdened with a mixture of fluffy fripperies, work clothes that would not have gone amiss on an oil rig, and a collection of pseudo-military stylings rendered upon a variety of one-piece boiler suits. The sense of jasmine and lavender mixed with that of a fine machine oil, a not displeasing combination. "She's not in it, and Richard needs medical attention," said Horst. He laid Richard out on the bed, wincing inwardly at the mess the blood and filth were going to leave on the bedding, and stepped back. "I can't help him," he said, and pushed past the D Society members gathered around the door. "But I can help defend the train." Horst reached the still-open carriage door to find things were going very badly, at least for the otherworldly creatures. From positions on the rail bed, an open door at the other end of the sleeper carriage, from the windows, 3 guns were blazing at the unhappy, unearthly invaders, blowing chunks of screaming supernatural flesh from them as they advanced through the hail. The nearer of the two had inevitably drawn most of the fire, and it finally gave up whatever it used for a ghost by the abandoned lorry, flopping to the ground and expiring with a scream that spoke of distant stars, strange angles, and the sheer bloody unfairness of being dragged to earth just to be chopped to ribbons by gunfire. The second creature, becoming the only surviving creature, coincided with a pause in the shooting, in the same way that sometimes all the conversations in a crowded room can simultaneously reach natural pauses that, in their synchronization, seem very unnatural. So may the reservoirs of ammunition and a variety of firearms all run dry at the same time. The crack of guns was replaced by the frantic clickings of shells being slipped into chambers, and the silken swish and clatter of box magazines being withdrawn and discarded. The creature, in its non-Euclidean way, seemed to regard the cessation of fire as a declaration of unconditional surrender and desire to be butchered on the part of the defenders. Perhaps that was how such things were signaled in its home dimension. In any event, it responded by screaming more gleefully yet and swooping toward the train, hurling the lorry as it came on. It was then introduced to the concept of full automatic fire at this juncture was unkind, but salutary. From the roof of the carriage came the perfunctory bark of a large caliber round being fired with the mechanical disinterest of a sewing machine making a hem. The creature slowed as the bullets tore through it, its scream sounding a mite less self-assured. That momentary slowing was all the time required for the other gunners to complete reloading, and within a second, 4 guns were blazing hell and damnation at a monstrosity that had previously considered itself very much at home to both. The scream choked, returned more weakly, ululated into a flutter, and then the creature fell onto the embankment before rolling nervelessly back down to lie dead at its base. Horace jumped down and walked past Mink to look up onto the carriage roof. On it stood Boom, bracing a very serious-looking piece of combative machinery against her hip while she checked its action. "Is that a machine gun?" he called up to her. "It's a submachine gun," she corrected him. "A Thompson. 50 rounds of 45 ACP in the drum. Well, there were." She lowered the weapon and nodded at the corpse of the last creature. "Most of them are in that now. That was fun. Coming down," she said as she started to turn toward the open roof hatch through which she had gained the roof in the first place. She paused, looking back up the meadow to the road. "Oh, what is it now?" A small convoy of 4 lorries were emerging from behind the bank on the far side of the meadow as they processed down towards the bend that would bring the road parallel to the track. Horace saw the passengers, dull-eyed and long-suffering, in the back of the first, and knew the danger was far from over. "We have to get moving," he shouted up at Boom. "How long does it take to get this thing underway?" Boom gave the approaching vehicles a last glance of such profound suspicion that Horace could almost hear her hackles rising. She looked forward and was unhappily surprised to find the woman she'd sent to the locomotive nowhere near it, absent-mindedly slotting fresh shells into her revolver as she watched the approaching lorries. "Daisy! What the hell? I told you to tell the driver to get us out of here!" "Helmet's gone," said Daisy, as if there were a piece of news and incidental interest. "Him and Thomas lit out when they saw the flying leggy things. They're probably a mile away by now." The boss lady appeared at the far carriage door. "And you waited until now to tell us?" For the first time, Daisy seemed to realize that moving the train was of more than incidental importance. "Sorry, Jenny," she said, all contrite. She had already fallen from Jenny's attention. There were more pressing matters to deal with. "Becky!" A woman in a flat cap, her red hair hastily crammed underneath it, looked up. "Can you drive the train?" "They wouldn't let me play with it, but I've watched them. I reckon so." "I've driven a train," said Horst, which was true. Traveling between towns aboard a carnival train had not been without its pleasures, and one such had been the realization of a childhood dream to ride the footplate of a locomotive. The crew had not complained, partially because he was one of the bosses, and partially because they were dead. Originally a pair of breathtakingly incompetent highway robbers, they had encountered his brother, Johannes, who had shot them more for the crime of irking him than any other. He had raised them in a spirit of waste not, want not, and they had found service driving the brothers' diabolical carnival for a year. Being dead seemed to suit them, by all accounts. They were certainly friendlier, if no brighter, than when they were alive, and it would have been an ideal state of affairs but for the decomposition. Still, they had been happy enough to share their footplate on a good few nights in that strange year, and had demonstrated to Horst the esoteric art of throttle and brake, sandbox and condenser. "Then get to it," snapped Jenny. "The rest of you, all aboard." Horst burned a little blood to blur ahead and reach the locomotive as quickly as he could. He was already checking the valves when Becky climbed up. "What?" she said on finding him there. "How did you get ahead of me?" "I'm very quick when I want to be." He tapped the pressure gauge. "There's barely a head of steam. We need more heat." He opened the firebox door, took up the coal spade, and started shoveling fuel into the hole. Becky was watching this performance with thin-lipped distrust. And how did you open a hot firebox door without burning your hand? She said slowly. Horst hesitated, then looked at her. He noted her hand was on the butt of her pistol and smiled apologetically. Look, he said, it's turning out to be an unusual sort of night for you, I know, and I won't lie to you. One of those unusual things is me, but I just want us to get out of here alive, while the unusual things in those lorries really want to kill everybody here. So can we discuss this later? She considered for a moment, then went to the cab side to look back along the track. She plainly didn't like what she saw as she slipped her gun out of its holster. We'll do that. Right now, keep stoking, she cited and fired at the newcomers while he shoveled in coal as quickly as he could without sending it flying in all directions. Jesus Christ, he heard her mutter. Now it's zombies. I hate this stupid country. Horst shoveled until he feared the fresh coal was starting to choke the fire, slamming the firebox door shut, making a point of using the spade for the operation this time. He checked the pressure. It was starting to build, but was still a good way from allowing the train to reach top speed. Then again, he reasoned, how fast does a train have to go to outrun a bunch of shambling undead? He released the brakes and slowly started to open the throttle. The train shuddered forward a little, then halted. Slowly, it started to move again, slowly and remaining slow. Can't we go any faster? Demanded Becky as she reloaded. Horst sat quietly, impressed to note that, unlike the D Society, these people carried around enough ammunition to last them through any situation short of a protracted land war. Not enough steam, but moving slowly better than not moving at all. Becky watched as a zombie that had been trying to board the rearmost car fell on its face between the rails. It did not attempt to rise, but lay there, face down, gloomily aware that the afterlife was proving just as frustrating as regular life. I think you're right, she conceded. Looks like we might just... Oh, now what's this? Horst leaned out behind her to see what new developments were apparent. While the walking dead were shambling as quickly as they could, a gap was growing between their ranks and the train as it sped away from them at a heady 5 miles an hour. The last lorry had pulled up, however, and it was disgorging its passengers with far greater quickness. These leapt and sprinted now on 2 legs, now on 4, and they were past the zombies already. Lycanthropes. Lycan who? Werewolves. And foxes. And tigers. Maybe some bears? I think they only had one badger, and I killed him. One of the shape changers, a jackal or a hyena, was hit by a shotgun blast from a window and fell, rolling down the embankment. Before it had even reached the bottom, however, it was fighting to regain its feet. In another moment, it was up and running once more. Becky returned to Horst and said in disbelieving tones, Are we going to need silver bullets? Belatedly, Horst realized why the Society's ammunition supply had been so slight compared with the circus's. Ideally, yes. Becky shook her head and reholstered her pistol. She went to the controls and studied them. Well, shocking news, mate. We don't have any. All we can do is keep knocking them over until we can outrun them. Oh, look, you're venting pressure here, see? She closed a valve, and despite Horst's mumbled claim that he was doing nothing of the sort, the pressure started to build more rapidly. Satisfied that they were finally getting some decent acceleration, she looked back along the side of the train again. They're on the train! I can see one on the roof! On the roof, Boom had just finished emptying the Thompson into the oncoming werewolf. It had staggered under the leaden hose down she'd given it, but now the submachine gun was empty, and she had no more loaded drums ready. She swung it into the small of her back on its sling and drew her pistol. The wolfman grinned, the slavering lips raised to expose the long fangs, and advanced upon her in a bestial crouch. Deciding that discretion was the better part of not being torn limb from limb by an atavistic monstrosity, Boom backed away toward the open roof hatch, firing steadily as she went. The 32 bullets did little more than make the creature flinch as it moved forward, matching her step for step, all the while its tongue lolling from the side of its mouth, waggling obscenely in the growing slipstream of the train's passage, while drops of saliva flecked onto its fur. Step for step they moved, she retreating into the direction of travel, it advancing, each step punctuated by a shot, until the pistol's slide stopped in the back position, showing both antagonists that the last shot had been fired. Boom risked a quick look behind her to see if she might risk a dive for the hatch, and at that very moment the werewolf leapt at her. That it didn't reach her was surprising to both of them, neither having allowed for the possibility of a vampire moving at inhuman speed, intercepting the wolf in midair, and the two of them crashing to the carriage roof in a tangle of fur, fangs, limbs, and aggression. The sudden change in manners caused Boom to freeze for a moment, but only a moment. Then she busied herself reloading, never taking her eyes off the fight. It had immediately become apparent to Horst that the fundamental difference between werewolves and were-badgers were that the former were just so much more bitey, where the badger had led with his heavy claws, although he might have got around to biting later if he had lived that long. After all, new were-badgers have to come from somewhere. The wolf's tactics were all based around biting, grappling, and biting, slashing and biting as an overture to more biting. Horst wasn't having any of that, however. He had no idea if it was possible for a vampire to contract lycanthropism, but diverting it, as the concept was, he had no intention of allowing werewolf saliva into his veins to find out. Besides, he'd already drunk were-badger blood that night, so if anything, he'd end up striped, fanged, and with claws very useful for grubbing up worms and insects. He could hardly wait. Still, what if it were possible to be infected by more than one kind of lycanthropy? By the light of the full moon, he would turn into a vampiric were-menagerie, and that would just be confusing. Thus he dodged and blocked the snapping jaws while ignoring the claws, slashing his sadly abused clothing. He could always heal the wounds after all, and his clothes were already in such a state that a rag and a bone merchant would turn his nose up at them. He was also eager to avoid falling from the train, a fate that the roof's camber, the peripatetic nature of the fight, and the growling, rocking motion as the train gathered speed were all starting to make a concern. The wolf was on him with its claws at his throat when, in an effort to recenter the confrontation, he raised his hands between its arms and forced them apart, breaking its grip before punching it hard. As it reared back, momentarily stunned, he backhanded it, sending it stumbling backward to fall supine along the raised center ridge of the roof. Horst was on his feet in rather less than a second, and positioning himself for the kill when he hesitated. The werewolf was possessed of Dougs. It says something about Horst that the hesitation was provoked by two considerations. Firstly, that while this was certainly a ravening monster from the realms of phantasmagoria, it was a lady monster from the realms of phantasmagoria, and he had been raised to find it hard even to manage impoliteness to ladies, never mind killing them in hand-to-hand combat. Also, it must be admitted, he was wondering how two managed to manifest as six during the transformation and what it must look like as they shifted from chest to midriff and back again when wolf time was over. Alas, it was this second thought that occupied much of his concentration at the critical, indeed fatal moment. Although there there are probably worse things to be thinking while one is gutted by a werewolf. That it was not his last thought was entirely out of his hands, as the werewolf rolled to its hind feet and crouched to leap at the vampire. Distracted terribly by inappropriate musings, a well-placed bullet entered its skull from behind, neatly between its laid-back ears, the strange charm that usually protected the werefolk from such mundane deaths failing to protect it at all. Horst looked forward, slightly stunned, and caught in a mist of werewolf fluids. Boone was crouching by the hatch, up through which had appeared the upper body of Alicia, her pistol, still leveled in two-handed grip, stabilized by laying her upper arms on the hatch's frame. She raised the gun while reaching into her jacket with her offhand, and brought it out again with a few metallic objects rolling in her palm. "Found some more silver bullets in my other pocket," she called. "I'd forgotten all about him." Horst looked down at the werewolf's body. She was already beginning to transform back into a human. Standing over the carcass, the miracle of wandering breasts no longer seemed so fascinating to Horst. He knelt down and rolled the body off the roof while she was still monstrous, inhuman, and easier for him to deal with on the balance sheet of his conscience. "There may be others," he shouted, distracted by an inner voice that was just pointing out that it was the wolf woman, or him, who had to die, so obviously better it was the woman. If he would just put all these weak emotions in a box and burn them on a bonfire of ambitions, now made possible by his elevated status, he would find things so much simpler and less painful. He ran aft to see if there were, indeed, others attackers to be dealt with. The precipitate decision surely had nothing to do with covering his confusion. Oh, no. There was sporadic fire from the rear car as the train pulled away from its pursuers. The shooting had settled down into a game of knock down the were-whatever after it had become apparent that the creatures were thoroughly resistant to lead. The vanguard of pursuers were of the more fleet-of-foot varieties, wolves mainly, along with a couple of great cats, and both they and the train's defenders had discovered that things went badly for them if they were knocked off their feet by a shot. While the bullet itself was a small inconvenience, the great were-bull, a magnificent minotaur possessed of vast slabs of muscle and little brain, that was following up the rear would likely run over them. The lycanthrope's resistance to harm seemed very specific. Bullets were nothing, but more immediate physical damage, such as that caused by knives and the hooves of a clumsy were-cow, could cause great injury. Those knocked over by a flying bullet, therefore, prioritized getting out of the way rather than regaining their feet. That the Minotaur was relatively slow, despite his enraged and protected charge in pursuit of the train, meant that while he stood no chance of catching them, he was inadvertently aiding the cause of the fugitives. Finally, however, even he realized that if you're running after something and yet it continues to grow smaller, then the chances are it's getting away from you. He slowed to a halt, clouds of vapor rushing from its muzzle in gouts, and bellowed his frustration at the diminishing train. Horst waved at him, which didn't help. Finally, the time for formal introductions had arrived. The venue was a rarely used spur line leading up to a worked-out tin mine in a festering of small, heavily wooded hills, between which the main line snaked. The practiced manner in which switches were thrown, the metal stop sign mounted in the middle of the track, was lifted and replaced after the train had moved by, and then all traces of its passage erased, indicated that this was a bolt hole they had caused to retire to on several occasions. In the penultimate carriage of the train, Jenny the boss was holding court. Whether it was a court of the royal variety or the judicial sort was open to interpretation. She sat behind a desk at one end of a large compartment that seemed to double as an office, and a common room, regarding them with a jaundiced and suspicious eye, while her 4 colleagues sat or stood around her. Before them were Horst, Alicia, the Major, and the Professor. All were subdued. Outside, just by the tree line, was a fresh grave. Richard had not survived his injuries, dying quietly while the fight had raged outside. The burial was preceded by a grim little piece of post-mortem surgery to deny him to the enemy. The Professor, having no more of his strange chemical mixture, left to effect a convenient cremation. Ginny regarded them one at a time, taking her time as her gaze swept along the line of her new passengers. Finally, she said, "That's not the kind of way I like to be woken." "Apologies, madam," said the Major, bravely taking the onerous task of communicating with these unnatural women. "The situation was not of our choosing." "Yeah, I figured that, so. Since you've cost me so much time and trouble, maybe you could explain the zombies, the were-things, and," she pointed at Horst, "him?" The Major looked at Horst uncertainly. "While I can essay and attempt to explain all else, ma'am, to be frank, I'd have a few problems explaining Herr Cabal myself." He turned back to Ginny. "I am Major Haskins, late of the guards." Ginny held up a hand. "What guards? Train guards? The Coldstream guards?" "The Grenadiers, madam," said Haskins, plainly more affronted by the second suggestion than the first. "As I was saying, late of the guards these days, however, I fight in a different sort of war. I should introduce my colleagues. This is Professor Stone." The Professor bowed, then made subsidiary side brows to the other women of the circus. "An antiquary and an anthropologist." "Amateur anthropologist," the Professor quickly interpolated. "He's too modest to say so, but he's quite the polymath. And this is Miss Alicia Bartos." Alicia showed no inclination to bow or, heaven forbid, curtsy. Instead, she simply nodded. "She's—" The Major foundered, at a loss to explain succinctly what she was. "She's— well?" Ginny looked at her. "What do you call yourself?" Alicia considered for a few seconds. It appeared summing up her career briefly was not something she'd had to do before. Certainly her curriculum vitae seemed to be of an involved sort, given her evident concentration. Then her brow cleared, and she smiled very slightly. "I'm a spy." Ginny leaned back, her old round-backed office chair creaking. "Poor kind of spy who admits to it." Alicia shrugged slightly. "An ex-spy." "Who for?" "Prussian intelligence." There was an amused snort from Mink at that, earning her a cold scowl from Alicia. "Which is not a contradiction in terms." Ginny shook her head slightly and looked at their faces one by one. "So, we have a soldier, an academic, and an ex-spy." Amid more creaking, she leaned forward and rested an elbow on her desk and her chin in her palm as she looked at Horst, standing there in the wreck of his outfit. "I can barely wait to hear what you are." "Oh, I'm a vampire," said Horst. "Speaking of which, do you think we might rattle on a bit more quickly with this? The sun'll be up soon, and we don't really get on very well." And that was Chapter 8. Intermission time. So what'd you think? I know a fair amount of you would probably enjoy the lesbian circus workers. I've been waiting for this moment. I knew a fair amount of you would really like this one. Where menagerie is my new favorite word. I'm good. I'm making it, at least. Running out of coffee, slight problem. Thank you for asking. Horst is so awkward. Yeah. He suffered a lack of social skills for a long time. You gotta admit, most of who he was interacting with before this year, they were all dead. Or at least working for Satan. He didn't really have to, like, try hard. So, I do. I should go get more, but I have a drink in here, but I'm like, I have a smoothie. It's not really a smoothie. But I'm like, I almost would prefer coffee to alcohol. Yeah, I knew a lot of people would. Lesbian circus workers? But I knew you guys would probably get a kick out of it. And, it's a very cross in terms, because part of it is sort of the universe in which it's led and the time period that it's taking place in, but the major's like, women wearing pants, and all the women are just like, here's my submachine gun, I put a new engine in this flight rack, like, and you're just like, yes. So I figured people would really enjoy it. I have been looking forward to this particular chapter. Yes. Isn't there a sriracha shortage right now? Never mind. Whatever. It's fine. I don't know how you did it. We're at a sriracha right now. But I figure you all would like them. And at one point, it goes into it a little bit like from like a race perspective, which I really enjoy. Never ask anybody where they're originally from, but Horst learns that, I think, coming up. It's pretty funny. And you find out what their circus does, which is really fun. Costco-sized okay. I'm having trouble finding anything. Hey, good to see you. Glad you're here. Yeah. Like, he's, like, debating if he'd rather go back to the demons, or, like, the Americans wearing pants. Like... Yeah. I always picture... And I know it says, like, Becky is, like, a redhead, but for some reason, I always pictured, like, in my brain, in my hind brain, I always pictured the mechanic from, Atlantis. And I know there's supposed to be a redhead. I've read it in the book. My brain has disregarded that and has made Becky... I don't know why. Yes! Excellent. I'm glad I got it. But yeah, just immediately my brain. I was like, no. Maybe that's redhead erasure. I don't know. But I'm still like... The mechanic from Atlantis. If most of your formative decisions later in life were based upon the mechanic from Atlantis, everybody sound off in chat. Yeah. This is my new favorite sweater. I can't take it off. I can't take it off. I can't take it off. It's like not even anywhere close to cold. It's so hot. I can't take it off. I can't take it off. It's my new favorite thing. Kaylee from Firefly, yes. Yes. Do your homework. What do you mean? Do your homework. Do your homework. Thank you for the roses. I appreciate it. Anyway, I've been really excited about... Yeah, hot topic. It's the... I like it even more because of that. I was stalking Dad through the mall, and I followed him into Hot Topic. I was going in there to get setting spray real quick, and then I saw Dad, and I was like, I'm gonna follow Dad around this mall. And I followed Dad into a Hot Topic. And I was like, Dad. I kept trying to talk to him, and he just did not hear me at all. And then I saw this, and I was like, ooh, hold up. And then I, like, set that aside on the counter and followed him out of the Hot Topic and halfway through the mall. And then eventually I had to, like, poke him in the back. And he got real startled. And he was like, you snuck up on me. And I was like, yeah, weird that happened. I shouted your name like 50 times. And he was like, I was in the mall. I wasn't paying attention. I was like, cool. It shouldn't have taken that long to get your attention. I was literally waving at you from across the building, but okay. Aw, see yourself out. Why? Mall blinders. Yeah, apparently that's the thing. But I found this, so I was fine with it. It's my new favorite thing, though, and I can't take it off. How do I have so many people in this chat? Thank you for the rose. I appreciate it. Yes, my cat. This is Bartholomew the First. Dude, I want one of those so bad. But I know, okay, the thing is, it would only work on one of my cats. Pond would not fit in there. Pond is like a whole bowling ball. She's so cute. Yeah, little Toby. This is my favorite Stuffy, like, by far. I even like it more than my Pikachu. You're so squishy. Okay. Yeah, he's my favorite. Toby might fit in there. Just the Atlantis comment. Okay, I thought you were really leaving. I was like, oh man, did I upset somebody again? I said some stuff. It was too hot. It's too much of a hot take. People got mad. Thank you for the dino. Yeah, I get some. I get a decent amount. I love it when people send me gifts. It's not necessary. If you can, that's great. If you can't, I don't love you any less. I'm gonna play Binding of Isaac when I get off here. That seems unrelated, except for the Switch comment. I was like, I'm gonna get off here, and I'm gonna cuddle my Switch, and I'm gonna play Binding of Isaac late into the night. It's gonna be my thing. I could always play Binding of Isaac in the redacted, so you all can hear me go off, I guess, if you really enjoy that. Some people really do. I don't always see the appeal. Sometimes having it read back to me out of context when I've forgotten later, I see why it is amusing. But in the moment, it seems very frustrating. Yes, food. Food. Okay. I ate earlier, but it wasn't a lot. And then need that content. I'll be sure to put myself in VC, so it's just been so much more stressful for you lately. I haven't had the chance to catch up completely, but like, I know your commute has gotten absolutely insane. Aw, husband for the win. Sometimes that's all you need to set you straight is a good burrito. And I'm thinking about food. I should have ate more earlier, and I did not before I started fiddling with all this editing crap. I ate this morning, and then I was like, gonna edit all day. Gonna edit all the stuff. Gonna do all the content. And then I didn't. I did two things. I did two things. It took all day. It was so frustrating. It wouldn't let me do anything. I'm so upset. So much more stuff planned. I want to get all my Shinzo ideas out of my head before I revamp him, because I'm gonna work more on the quality of this cosplay. And I've got Johannes aired out, but I gotta get some pictures for that one. And I need some things I'm missing like little things, like little pieces of little parts of the cosplay of every single one. And I'm like, if I could just get all of one cosplay together, then I could make more content. But I'm missing bits and pieces of little ones. Like, I have some stuff for Nyarlathotep, but I'm missing the wig, and I'm missing the horns. Everything else I have. And then, like Ghoul Johannes, Denny is working on nails for me. Not that I'm telling you to rush anything. You take your time, you gentle, kind soul. Anyway, I have the contacts though. Which were so generously donated by Crimson. Thank you, Crimson, for the money for the contacts. They look crazy and I can't see, but it's going to be slapping content. So I'm really excited about it. And I have the spine, the wax, the glue, the everything. And I'm waiting on the last of the body paint and the nails. And then I can do, but and I have to get, never mind. I do have to get some other stuff. I have to get another binder, that's white. I need to get a white binder. That's what I need. But then Ghoul Johannes is pretty much finished. But I'm waiting on just those little items that are just missing that would just really tie it all together. And then, I have, Lady Misericordia's robe. Thank you, maybe. But I'm missing the wig for that. And then I have another set to Lady Misericord that I'm missing that I really want to do. I have the boots for that, but I do not have the rest of it's on the wish list, I think. But it's like a jacket. Anyway, whatever. I'm missing just little bits and pieces, and I'm like, if I could just get a little bit ahead without my tires going out on me. Because I have money. And I'm like, I really need new tires. That would be so responsible of me. So good of me. I would be able to drive safely to and from work every day and make more money so that I can get those things. And then the other part of me is like, but you have the money now. I'm like, yes, but that money is for tires. The money is for tires. I'm supposed to get new tires. I have one tire, my front driver's side tire has a knot in it, my front passenger tire is completely bald, and my back passenger tire has 2 leaks that are within a short distance of each other, so I can't plug either one of them, and I just keep having to put $2 of air in my car every time I drive it. I need new tires, and I'm going to have to replace all 4 at the same time. That's like a good, $400 something? So I'm like sitting on $300 right now, and I'm like, I could get all the cosplay things right now. And I'm like, and hear me out, we don't burst a tire on the highway. And I'm like, you're right. I have to talk myself down. Every time I get that amount of money, and I'm like, I could get all the cosplay things right now, though. And I've gotten a couple things just to, like, appease myself. I'm like, okay, calm down. You got this one thing for this one thing, and you're good with that. And now, tires, right? Tires. Because you're an adult. You have to be an adult, and you gotta get the tires. You have to get the tires. You can't not have the tires. Need the tires. I had an air pump and it broke. It just won't turn on anymore. I don't know what the deal is, but I had a really nice fancy air pump. And it lasted me like a good several years. So it's not like a bad air pump or whatever. I think it was just, I'm unsure. I think it must have been the wreck and the vibe. If you all weren't following me before, I posted content a while back from it, but I had a wreck, like a really bad car wreck that totaled my car, and a Ford F-150 slammed into the back of me going 60 miles an hour while I was at a dead stop in a turning lane, and rammed my car into another vehicle with a dad and his 2 children. So it was completely that guy's fault, and insurance did pay out and everything, but all of my shit just went scattered along the highway. I remember I looked out through my car's broken window and just saw my cup that had my coffee in it just on the freeway. And I was like, oh, this was a bad one. I had to wear a neck brace for like a few days. And they put me in like all sorts of shit at the hospital. They scanned everything, and I didn't have any major lasting injuries. I did have neck pain for like a couple of days to where I couldn't lift my own head up, so I had a neck brace. It's still over there in the corner. I should get rid of this neck brace. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. But yeah, and then when I got my air pump back from, we had to go get all the stuff out of my my completely obliterated car. When we got to get all the stuff out of it, I remember my air pump was in the back of the car, and then when I got it back to the house, and I didn't really check it, but then the next time I went to use it, when I got this car, after I had been driving this car for a good several months, I finally was like, airing up, the back tire, because it started running low, and it was probably because I had a nail in it and didn't know it yet, and the air pump just didn't work. So now I'm going to have to replace that, but I should replace the tires first. Yeah, no, I don't know why that was my number one thought when I was in the car wreck, and I looked out my window and I was like, oh, my cup. My coffee's gone. And, like, I'm pretty sure the EMTs just thought I had, like, brain damage or something, because they got there and I was like, did somebody get my cup? And they were like, and then my second thought was, can someone call and tell my boss that I'm not going to be in for the rest of the day? And they were like, and then finally they were like, do you have a next of kin? Do you have an emergency number that we can call? And I was like, huh? Oh, yeah, Dave. It's like the first thing that you think of is just not normal. My first thought would have been like, somebody go and tell my significant other that I'm on the freeway. No, my first thought was, can someone grab my coffee cup? That coffee cup was done for. They did not grab it. It was completely broken. Glasses are another thing because they're necessary for you to see. So when you don't naturally see very well, if you lose your glasses, or like your glasses are cracked or something, that's going to inhibit you getting out of the situation. So, yeah. That's literally how it went. I was like, someone call my boss and tell him I'm not going to be in. And they were like, where do you work? Where do you... They were like, do you have an emergency contact? And I was like, yeah, my boss. And they were like, no. And I was like, but someone's got to tell him that I'm not going to be in. I have an order in my car. Oh. So yeah, I had the EMT call my boss, and they were like, where do you work? I was like, you know. And they had to call him. And then they called me. They called my work first, and then they called my emergency number. First priority, coffee. Second priority, obligations I have to other people. Third priority, myself. I don't know why that was the way that worked. Yeah, like my vision is pretty on par with that. Like if these aren't prescription, like that's why I wear these all the time, because they're prescription and I don't know where my regular ones are. So I just wear my cosplay contacts all the time. But if I can't see, and what was the worst thing about all of this is I had my white contacts in that day. Like, that's why I don't take those to work anymore. Because I had the white ones that just had the black pupil. So they thought I was dangerously in shock when they first picked me up. And I was like, no, I think I'm good. And they were like, you're... And I could hear one of them talking to another EMT about my pupils. And I was like, those are contacts. And they were like, what? And I was like, those are contacts. It's not I'm fine. And they were like, are you sure? And I literally had to like reach into my eye and pull my contact over. And they were like, oh. So they thought I was dangerously in shock. I was not. I was almost completely fine, except for just whiplash, essentially, was really, and it didn't have any lasting damage on my neck, but they didn't know that. So, like, they're just trying to get me out of the car. And it looks like I'm going into shock because my eyes are completely white and my pupils are this big. And I had to tell these EMTs that they're contacts. And then when they get me on the table, they were like, well, those contacts are really cool. Where'd you get those? That's why I don't take those to work. Yeah, never again. Never again. I almost entirely wear the purple ones. Because then every once in a while, like, people know they're contacts at least, because they're an unnatural color. But if you're gonna wear really crazy ones, don't get into a car wreck. That's my advice. Don't get into a car wreck if you're wearing nutso contacts. Could you imagine if I just had the blind contacts in, or like the bloodshot ones, and they were just like freaking out and I wasn't in a position to respond, like, they'd think I was hemorrhaging. Like, if you, in the moment, because that's what an EMT is prepared to deal with, so they don't immediately go to, like, oh, well, that's an unusual pattern. No, they're gonna just think that you're hemorrhaging or something. Yeah, be careful when you go out into the wild with contacts. Is maybe not awake? Well, they're about to miss the next chapter, because I was going to start any minute now. Is baby not here? Maybe. Maybe. Oh my god. I'm sure on Halloween they might have a little bit more discretion about it. But this was nowhere near any holiday where you would be wearing anything nutso. So, like, I'm pretty sure their first thought is just not going to be like, oh, those are contacts. No. They're going to think something crazy is happening. Is maybe not? Maybe. Maybe he's gone. I'm assuming maybe he's dead. They've never missed. That doesn't matter. You can dress up whatever you want at any time. Doesn't matter if it's Halloween. You can do what you want. Dress how you want to. Be whoever you want. All right, are we ready to get into chapter 9? Lesbian circus workers? I'm a bit sad Maybe isn't here. I feel like if Maybe was here, Maybe would respond to me when I said their name multiple times. They wouldn't just ignore me. All right. Chapter 9, in which acquaintances are made and measures taken. Horst slept that day in an arms locker, which was a novel experience, as they were currently in dangerous country, dense with bandits, outlaws, and, as it turned out, zombies, shape-changers, and sundry forces of darkness. The weapons were not to be found in there at the moment. This left them with a welded steel safe box, perhaps a yard square, guarding some cleaning kits, empty packages, and the petty cash. These were spirited out, and Horst invited, somewhat tersely, to take up residence. He was disappointed, but not surprised, to hear the box's heavy padlock put into place and clicked shut once he was uncomfortably curled up within. Another confined space, another padlock. How history repeated itself. Although he could not see it, he was aware of the sun rising outside and of its purifying rays driving away all evil from the hemisphere, with the exception of bankers. A few minutes later, a great weariness settled upon him, and he fell rapidly into torpor. There was little air within the box, but that didn't matter. He wouldn't be using any of it. Some events occurred during the day, as events are wont to do, but Horst was unaware of these and all else. The sun moved on. It was a pleasant enough sort of day for those who were not in deadly danger, but the passengers of the train regarded the slow arc of the sun as a slowly creeping indicator of growing menace. The night would shoo away the bankers, but all other evils would be unleashed. Horst awoke in the reverse of how he slept. As the sun slipped beneath the unseen western horizon, animation returned to him, and he stirred in an unnatural sleep. Through the long minutes of dusk, he slept as he had once slept when his blood was warmer and his hours diurnal, until as the last glimmer passed from the sky, his eyes opened. He was still in a box, and the blasted thing was still locked. After some minutes of gentle pounding on the box's side with the occasional polite cry of, "Hello! Excuse me! Hello!" He heard approaching footsteps. The lock rattled in its hasp, and the lid was flung up. He uncurled himself, cramp unfortunately being a mortal failing, and raising his head slowly to look out. One of the circus women, presumably whoever had just released him, was returning to a firing line centered around Ginny. They looked at him from above gun barrels, and their intent to shoot him if necessary was perfectly evident. Horst found something to lament in that this wasn't even the worst wake-up call he'd ever experienced. "Good evening, ladies," he said quietly, so as not to provoke. The carriage was swaying slightly. He wondered how long they had been underway. "Two things worth considering. Firstly, you could have destroyed me easily during the day, but you didn't. Many thanks for that. Secondly, you must appreciate that your guns are next to useless against me. I could probably pop out of here and—" "Hunger," said the nagging little voice that wasn't him, yet spoke with his voice. "Kill them and feed." "Pop out of here and kill. Defeat you." Knuckles whitened as trigger fingers grew taut. "But I'm not going to do that." They continued to stare at him from behind their ridiculous, useless weapons. "Because," he smiled, fighting the urge to let his fangs extend, "I want us to be friends." "He's right," said Alicia. Horst hadn't consciously noticed her. She'd been standing alongside the box the whole time. "The guns are a waste of time. Believe me, I know." Horst nodded, hands on the edge of the box, head barely exposed. "She shot me." "I shot him," Alicia confirmed. "Twice. I knew they wouldn't kill him. I just needed to slow him down a little." "Unnecessarily. I didn't know that at the time," she said, with the tiniest hint of apology in her voice. Ginny sighed and returned her revolver to its hip holster. "Put 'em away, girls," she ordered. Hammers were thumbed down, safety catches engaged, barrels lowered, holsters filled. Ginny was obeyed, without question, perhaps, but with evident reluctance. Even given the ineffectuality of firearms against a vampire, there would still have been some satisfaction in punching a few holes in him if things had become physically unfriendly. Ginny Montgomery sat on a crate and regarded both Horst and Alicia with the same air of mild hostility. "Waifs and strays I can deal with, but this is a new one on me. Monsters and monster hunters, and one of the hunters is a monster himself. This is just great," she said, although whether she really thought it was great was disputable. "Life's strange, isn't it?" said Horst. He had decided that to take offense at the term monster would be undiplomatic. In any case, it was true. "May I get out of the box, please? I feel like half of a ventriloquist act in here." Nobody said he couldn't, although nobody said he could, and as he climbed out, he asked, "So, anything interesting happen while I was sleeping?" "Miss Montgomery here," said Alicia, nodding at Ginny, "has agreed to take us to the next town. Then we're on our own again." "Town is putting it strongly," said Mink. When Alicia looked questioningly at her, she expanded with, "It's a farming center, calls itself a town, but really it's just a place for the farmers to come in to buy supplies. Maybe a couple of 100 people there." This was not the sort of news Alicia was hoping for. "There'll be a telegraph office, though. Other trains coming through?" Mink shrugged. Alicia raised her hands in frustration, her tension apparent. "You've seen what's going on around here," she remonstrated. "They know their security's compromised. They're moving ahead more rapidly already. Unless we stop them, this whole region will become a living nightmare." She examined her words and shook her head with a slight disbelieving smile. "That's not even a fanciful way of describing it. That is exactly what it will be like." "Tell it to the Marines," said Miss Ginny Montgomery wearily. Nobody seemed to have had much sleep. "It's not like we're kicking you off the train at Hicksburg or whatever it's called when we get there. We're doing 3 days of shows there. Maybe some agricultural work if we can find it." "Agricultural work?" mouthed Horst, but nobody minded him. It's our job. We don't fight boogeymen unless somebody brings them to our door, Miss Montgomery said pointedly. There are authorities, aren't there? Tell them. It's their country, after all. Their country, their problem. Alicia took a step forward, her anger growing. The authorities? For this place. Don't you understand? They're in the ministerium's pocket. We'd have to go to the neighboring states by the time we've convinced them of the threat. If you ever do, said Horst quietly. Alicia shot him a glance. We can be very persuasive. We have connections you know nothing about. You think private citizens can just lay hands on field mortars and shells if they get a sudden urge to siege a castle? Do you? She turned her attention back to Miss Montgomery. By the time we can convince them and they mobilize, it will be far, far too late. What were you planning on doing by yourself, then? There's the four of you. Miss Montgomery rose from her crate and walked over to where Alicia stood, almost palpably fuming with angry frustration. Look, darling, I have no idea if this is all you say it is. I'll be honest with you. This whole place is in such a state of disarray that I don't know if the citizens will even notice if they're being ruled by vampires and goblins and the Lord only knows what. The bottom of the line, the account reads, is that there's not a thing you can do by yourself. No matter what, your best chance is to persuade the neighbors to get involved. Yes, I heard you. That'll be too late to nip this thing in the bud, maybe so. But it's the only game in town. The place we're going to, we organized where we're going to be putting on the show by wire, so you can rest assured they've got a telegraph office there. Get your message out. That's all you can do, so you better get comfortable with the idea. Alicia could not get comfortable with this, but she relayed the intelligence to Major Haskins and Professor Stone, and after a very short discussion, because really, what alternative was there, they committed to do what little they could. There comes a point where you can charge around all you like, but there's nothing to be done about it. It's the nature of war, said the Major, shrewd though disconsolate. We shall call it in and wait. Alicia paced around. She had called herself a spy, but this had only been marginally true. She had been mainly involved as an agent of sabotage and assassination during her eventful time with Prussian military intelligence. But she wasn't about to communicate that willy-nilly. The whole blowing things up and doing people in milieu would only upset people. Thus, patience in the face of the enemy was not one of her fortes. She would much rather have been off putting silver rifle rounds through lycanthropic heads and putting enough gelignite in the cellars of the Red Queen's castle to put the whole sorry bunch of them beyond the orbit of the moon. You knew where you were with gelignite. Ideally, running away from it while the fuse burned down. All this not blowing things up or shooting people palaver, however, was wearing thin for her. And what if we're needed? They also serve, said the professor. We only stand and wait. I'm afraid the Major is right, Alicia. We can do more good relaying what we know and waiting the call to action that will surely follow. The train reached its destination in the early hours. Everybody but Becky on the footplate and Horst, who went to assist her, were sleeping as they approached an unassuming little conglomeration of clapboard buildings in the middle of a broad river valley situated by a broad and shallow river that ran over a rocky bed. There were no curious onlookers, and the only greeting they received was from an official at the wooden box of a station who wandered out in his nightshirt, made a note of the locomotive's number, was singularly uninterested to see that one of the crew was a woman, and told them to put the train over there, while indicating a field into which ran 5 sidings, all overgrown. It was clear that the settlement must have seen a lot of rail traffic at some time to make such a facility necessary, and now it was equally clear that those days were very long since gone. His duty discharged, the station master turned his back on them and shuffled back across rough boards and slippered feet to return to his rest. The impression received was that he got a lot of that. the train stopping and starting in its slow entry onto one of the sidings, accompanied by the unavoidable clanks and bangs of a train maneuvering without benefit of somebody in the guard's van helping with the brakes, awoke some aboard, and they woke the others. By the time the train was fully off the through line and the points closed behind it, Miss Montgomery and the rest of her party were up, dressed, and ready to work. Horace, who had previously traveled up and down the train by corridor where possible, and across roofs where it was not, was still vague about the nature of Miss Montgomery's circus, beyond the fact that there was a sufficient machinery involved for them to include a dedicated mechanic among their number, and a small workshop in the guard's van. Nor had the subject really had a chance to come up in conversation, what with all the chat about forces of darkness and the end of civilization having taken up so much time. Now he had the luxury of jumping down from the locomotive and walking back to take in the hoardings mounted on the sides of the two mysterious freight carriages. Miss Virginia Montgomery's Flying Circus. He read there. "Oh," he said. "Oh my." The troupe had lost almost 8 hours with their unexpected layover at the forgotten mine workings and were eager to make up time. The hoardings were taken down, Horst good-naturedly lending a hand where he was able, and permitted in an effort to recompense from the inconvenience, revealing one car to be bearing 3 anemopter fuselages and cargo frames, and its neighbor one, larger fuselage, several crates of spares, and a substantial fuel reservoir. Horst had never seen an anemopter close to, and had to be shooed away from them as a hand-cranked crane mounted at the end of the car, bearing 3 close by its neighbor, was brought into play. Here, at least, his help was welcomed, and he enthusiastically wound the first of the aircraft up, across, and thence down onto the loading track that ran alongside the spur. As the machine's carrying frame was unlocked and removed, Becky joined Horst. He had seen photographs and drawings of the small, agile aircraft, usually illustrated exciting tales of firm-chinned pilots who flew their dragonfly-like steeds into tricky situations on a weekly basis. Seeing one close up, all rivets and sheet steel and linkages, was so much more mechanical. "I thought they had bigger wings than that," he said, trying to make an intelligent comment. Becky laughed, indicating that it wasn't so intelligent after all. "Those are just the wing stems. The wings are dismounted for travel. We just have to put 'em on." She checked her wristwatch, a sturdy man's model that she wore face turned inward. "And you gotta do it properly. Don't want to lose one in flight." She looked seriously at him. "That would be bad." And she smiled. As each anemopter was disembarked from the train and its frame removed, it was manually rolled out of the way on its landing gear so the next could follow. Each was painted differently, each customized to its pilot's show persona. Horst attempted to match them to what he knew of the women with moderate success. He had a free start with Miss Virginia Montgomery's aircraft. He had learned not to call her Jenny already, as hers was the first off the train and the first he examined closely, so noting her name painted in flowing copperplate by the cockpit edge. Miss Mink Choi's was easy, the world over. There was nothing more guaranteed to appeal to the common man than to accentuate the uncommon and the exotic. In that bucolic European setting, where most had never seen a face that wasn't Caucasian, it was a sure bet that her Eastern roots would be played up to the hilt. Thus, her anemopter was as generically oriental as could be managed, with Chinese dragons running alongside each side, crossed Japanese swords upon the rudder, and an exhortation in what, to Horst's limited linguistic skills, looked to be Siamese running in a vertical column down the upper surface of the nose. Beneath each dragon was written in faux Chinese style, "Striking Dragon." As he helped hold up a wing while it was slotted, locked, and bolted into position by Mink, he asked her, "Might I ask where you're from, originally?" "New York," she said, not looking up from her work. "No, I meant more of your ancestry." "Korea. Why the interest?" She noticed this line of sight to the anemopter's fuselage. "Oh, that. Ignore that. That's just for the rubes. Horst smiled. Rubes. Haven't heard that for a while, he said, skipping over the periods of that time where he'd been very dead, even by undead standards. I helped run a carnival for a while. She looked up again. It's a pretty American word, she said. Where was the carnival? England, but on the strength we had, He paused while he considered how to explain that the American from whom he'd learned the word was actually a demonic construct raised from the blood of Lucifer. It seemed like a lot of work and would likely cause whatever goodwill he was earning with Mink and her comrades to evaporate. He contented himself with saying, an American, and left it at that. By a trifling coincidence, trifling due to the clear national majority within the women, the next machine he looked at was clearly an American's aircraft, judging from the screaming bald eagles on either side, the red, the white, the blue, the stars, and the stripes that occupied every square inch of the fuselage. Beneath the eagles and the aircraft's name rendered in urgent, forward-leaning capitals, Spirit of 76. This had been the first aircraft Horst had seen unloaded, and he knew it to be Miss Virginia Montgomery's. The next machine also used an American theme, equally dramatic but more sober. On a field of blue skies, white clouds, and tan desert sands, the profile of an American Indian chief, indeterminate nation, arrayed in full headdress, looked forward on either side of the Entomopter's nose above the legend, Queen of the Desert. The tail sported crossed six-shooters, and they reminded him of the Colt he'd seen Miss Daisy Hewlett firing with evident satisfaction into the face of a zombie on the night of their first acquaintance. She was, on reflection, almost the archetypal cowgirl, tall, rangy, with sandy blonde hair, and what he now took to be the verbal drawl he had read about in so many cheap Western novels. He had read in his youth, much to the exasperation of his father and disdain of his brother. Perhaps, he mused, she really was an actual cowgirl. She certainly looked very at home in her jeans. He mused on this for some further moments, until belatedly recalling that he was dead these days, and really shouldn't think along those sort of lines any more. He did not have much of an easy time with the next Entomopter he examined, however. This one was decorated with sparse, harshly angular patterns of long lines in different colors against a white background. The only part of its paintwork was that it all figurative, was a curious logotype painted on either side of the rudder, an image of a falling bomb of a modern type, cylindrical and finned. Riding it in its descent, however, with an expression of great determination, was another bomb, this time of the old spherical grenade form, much beloved of anarchists, if one is to believe the cartoonist. This bomb was anthropomorphized to the extent of having stubby arms and legs like a character from a comic strip, the former gripping the bomb with its little gloved hands, the latter straddling it. The anarchist bomb's round eyes were squinted in concentration. The Entomopter's name was written at the usual location in a very modernistic, brutalist style, Buzz Bomb. By a process of elimination, he must belong to the engagingly named Dutchwoman, Dia Boom. He had already inquired as to why, of her four companions, Miss Virginia Montgomery only ever referred to Dia Boom by her surname. This, Becky informed him, was because the alternative made it sound as if Miss Virginia Montgomery was using an affectionate term usually associated with married couples, and Miss Virginia Montgomery did not care for such familiarity. When time was not pressing, she might refer to Dia Boom as Miss Boom, but time always seemed to be pressing. Though Daisy might have fancied herself the Queen of the Desert, Becky was undeniably Queen of the Entomopters. No major process in their reassembly and preparation went without her close attention, and even when everything was in place, she still went over each with a clipboard in one hand and a stoic determination that there would be no mechanical failures on her watch, written upon her countenance. She was also drinking a vast amount of black coffee, and Horst calculated that she must be running on nigh a full 24 hours of demanding activity without even a nap. His sole attempt to get her to rest ran into the rocks immediately when she snapped, "We're running late. No time for rest, and gulped down a large mug of gluttonous coffee, one bright and feverish eye resting askance in his direction, like that of a peevish wolverine that just wants you to take one step closer. Horst was wise enough not to take that step, but instead induced short, covert periods of rest upon her utilizing the ancient and honored technique of gossip. Specifically, he brokered his real interest in entomopters and his equally real ignorance of their finer points into opportunities for her to stop what she was doing and lecture him briefly. All the entomopters were, with one exception, surplus Senzen Royal Aeroforce C-1 650s Guigaro interceptors, long since superseded by the C-1 880 Gepardo. "The 88's a nice bird," she confided, "but the 650 was no slouch in her day either." Apparently, the 6-1 650 had greater pretensions toward being a strike aircraft than its successor and allowed more of its weight toward payload. This turned out to be unnecessary, as military it was more used in controlling its own national airspace, so the C-1 880 was made faster. "That worked out well for us, though. We don't just fly displays. There isn't enough loose money floating around in this part for the world for that. We do a lot of general flying work, too. Pleasure jaunts like cargo, surveying, crop dusting, that sort of thing." Horst looked at the proudly painted former war machines with raised eyebrows. "Crop dusting?" "It pays the bills," Becky said a little shortly, so he changed the subject. "So there are 650s. What kind is that, then?" He nodded at the Spirit of 76. It was not as lean a machine as its fellows, but sleek for all that, with fairings that seemed perhaps a little larger than they needed to be, if only to project a sense of power. It was also the only one to have 2 seats, arranged one aft of the other. Becky shot the entomopter a cynical look, her lips slightly pursed. "More trouble than she's worth. Yankee machine, J-55 Copperhead. Can't get spares for her, so I spend half my waking hours bent over a lathe making 'em myself." Horst nodded sympathetically. "Looks good, though." Indeed, it did, the artful exaggerations in the design making the entomopter look muscular and purposeful. "Flies like a bus," said Becky unsympathetically. "Lousy engine in her, underpowered. Put a Rolls-Royce Hyperion in her, like the USAAF eventually did after all their pilots told them she flew like a bus. And she's a decent bird, can't afford one though. So we're left with the lowest bidder piece of rubbish that she came with. Fly better if I put a sewing machine motor in there." She looked gloomily at it. "Or a piece of wound-up elastic, anything." "But I don't understand this. Isn't Miss Montgomery the star of the show? Shouldn't she have the best mopter?" Becky shook her head as she took up the spanner once more. "Nah, it's a circus, and she's the ringmistress. She just has to look flash and stand out from the others. Don't get me wrong, she's a decent flyer, but she's no barnstormer. She keeps this show on the road, and that's plenty, believe you me." Horst had no experience of keeping a show on the road. He had avoided the bookkeeping end of things in the Cabal Brothers Carnival, leaving that in the capable hands of his terribly detail-oriented brother. Horst had been more than content to simply swan around in a variety of expensive suits, safe in the knowledge that a carnival that operates with next to no overheads and is underwritten by the devil himself is never going to run into financial problems. At some level, he had blithely assumed that this was only a small advantage and that normal carnivals made only slightly less money. Looking at the state of affairs with Miss Montgomery's flying circus, however, the battered rolling stock that probably would not pass muster for moving condemned cows the way everyone did what needed to be done regardless of their usual roles, the constant battle to keep the entomopters airworthy and the smiles bright, he could see that he'd been naive. Changing the subject slightly, he asked, "What happened to the military gear that was on the mopters when you bought them?" Becky didn't look up from the engine mounting she was checking. "You mean the guns? Stripped out before we ever saw them. Had to plate over where the barrel loops were. You can see the patches under the paintwork. They left the mounting hard points on, though, and we can use them to mount spraying gear, and I knocked together some external cargo pods that can sit on them. There were a bunch of specialist tools for the weapons these birds used to carry, too, and we got those. Priming levers, tension grips, that kind of thing. No use to us, but they were in the kits. Do you fly? I can, but I don't very much. Fuel's too expensive for pleasure jaunts. She stopped her work and glanced at him, looking for a reaction. I used to be in the Royal Air Force, you know. She was rewarded with raised eyebrows. I didn't know the RAF took female pilots. She grinned, pleased, and returned to disciplining an awkward bolt. They won't let women fight, but mopters have to be ferried around, so that was my job. Fun? She rocked her head to indicate it had its moments. Got a lot of air hours, not fancy flying, but good bread and butter stuff. Certified for night flying, which put me up on one of the couple of the girls. They might be able to barrel roll a mopter under a bridge, but they can't navigate to save their lives once the sun goes down. Horst smiled. I'm sure you don't remind them about that much. No, that'd be rude, she agreed. I keep it down to no more than a couple of times a day. The hours wound on until Horst felt the turn of the earth bring the killing sun around again. He made his apologies and headed for his locker, telling them he'd be fine, no need to tuck him in, no need to padlock the lid either. In the carriage he found Alicia, Major Haskins, and Professor Stone, all clearly recently awakened. This is nice, said Horst on seeing them. Is somebody going to read me a bedtime story? Mr. Cabal, said the Major. We need to know where you stand. Mr. Cabal, Horst echoed. He went to the locker, opened the lid, and started rearranging the dusty old blanket he had been given as an afterthought the night before. He would have preferred to have stripped before getting in to avoid creasing the clothes Miss Virginia had found, which is to say, stolen, although she characterized it as commandeering among the belongings of the errant train crew. It seemed unlikely that they would have got far with a tide of zombies and frustrated were-creatures stalking the area after the train's escape, she had explained. Horst found her logic irrefutable, if ethically questionable. Still, as his clothes had been torn, soaked, muddied, burnt, and corroded to a state where it took a brave man to call them clothes at all, he had decided that practicality and modesty were of greater moment than the property rights of the two men, missing, presumed Eden. Mr. Cabal was my father. These days, he's my younger brother, assuming he's still alive, and I'm just Horst. He looked at them, but they seemed in no great hurry to leave. It seemed likely that he was going to be wandering around in crumpled clothes the following night. Where I stand is next to my box. It's not as nice as my old box, but you have to make do, don't you? The sun will be up soon, so if this is going to be an involved conversation, can it wait until the evening? What we would like to know, Horst, said the professor, is if we can count upon you as an ally in the coming war. War? Horst slouched against the box. Look, I know the Ministerium is made up of bad people, but do you really see a war happening here? As a country, this place is already dead. Did you see the locals get involved the other night? They just locked their doors and let it happen. Monsters running loose all over the place, and nobody even tried to stop them. There will be no war here. He lifted a leg over the side of the box and started to climb in. There's no elegant way of doing this, he said with a slightly embarrassed smile. None of the others seemed to care so very much about the deportment of vampires. Mr. Cabal, said the Major, is that honestly what you think this is all the Ministerium have in mind? A safe haven for poor, hapless monsters to escape the prejudices of humans? Horst was now inside the box, both hands on its edge as he faced them. He felt like a defendant in court. "Yes?" he said, a little uncertainly. "The country is in a state of collapse and anarchy," said the professor. "It is useless in all respects to the needs of the Ministerium Tenebra. All but one." "They'll kill everyone, Horst," said Alicia. "They'll make them into new monsters. Everybody." Horst could not reply. Dawn was so close now. He wanted to rest, to sleep. He did not want to reply. "So," said the major, "where do you stand?" An interlude. "I note," said Johannes Cabal while making notes, "that there is a certain warmth in your tone when you refer to Fräulein Bertos." "No, there isn't," said Horst a little too abruptly. "There is. Even when you recounted how she shot you in the lungs, it was described in much the same mode one would expect if she'd sent you a poem of poor scansion and cloying sentimentality such as the ones that Greta Thorndyke used to send you." Horst looked offended. "You read Greta's poems?" "You used to read them to yourself, sigh happily, and leave them littering the place like dandruff. Of course I read them. You obviously intended them to be read, so I indulged your ego by doing so." "I'm sure I intended no such thing," protested Horst, not at all sure he intended no such thing. "Execrable poetry aside, the one likening you to a robin redbreast and herself to a turtle dove in particular still causes me to flinch involuntarily when it comes to mind, not least because of the biological unlikelihood of it all. That aside, you have a mooncalf air about you at such times. I see elements of it when Alicia Bartos is mentioned." "Honestly, Johannes, you really say—" "Don't," said Cabal peremptorily. "Simply don't." Horst rocked his head in indecision between moral outrage and gleeful agreement and gave it to the inevitable at speed. He smiled. No, he grinned. "She is a bit wonderful," he said. "She's a trained killer, practiced dissimulator, and a sworn enemy of necromancers." "I know, and she's really pretty too." He looked at Cabal with uncharacteristic nervousness. "I say, Johannes, you don't think, a fellow like me and a lady like that might somehow—" "A monster and a killer of monsters. Oh yes, Horst. Romance is certainly in the cards." Horst's enthusiasm waned a little. "You think that might be a problem?" "Honestly, yes. I think it might put a few brass tacks in your path." "Oh," said Horst. His shoulders sank. "Oh." Cabal looked at Horst and sighed. "Do you recall the offer I made you when I first liberated you from the crypt?" "The crypt you locked me in for 8 years." "The same," said Cabal, unperturbed. 8 years and 37 days, as I recall. Do you remember the offer?" "That you'd try to cure me." "It still stands." Horst crossed his arms. "Why should I believe you?" "Why shouldn't you?" "You did then." "I wouldn't put it that strongly." "And you have far more reason to do so now." Horst. He lowered his voice, ashamed. "I've done things since then. Things you don't know about." The confession almost choked him, but somehow he forced the words out. "I've done good things." Horst feigned astonishment. "Good Lord!" Cabal was distracted, lost in terrible memories of altruism. "Awful, senseless things. Sometimes I commit sensible, rational acts, and I get a pain in my chest, and then undoing what I've done makes me feel better, and sometimes it even makes me feel good." Horst, I think I may have a conscience. His brother, bursting into laughter, did not help Cabal's metaphysical suffering in the slightest. And that's the end of chapter 9. I ran out of coffee during that chapter. Sorry if it was really loud when I opened that can. I ran out of coffee. I mean, he's leaving his poems around the place. I feel like that's his own fault. That's like if you had a diary, but you frequently ripped the pages out of it and left them lying around the house. Like, what do you want? I agree with Johannes. That's kind of dumb. Like, why would you do that? But yeah, now we got a flying circus full of lesbians. It's a whole thing. It's a whole deal. So we're all having a fun time. Heyo. So, how are we all feeling? How are we all doing? How are you liking it? Do you still like it? Do you hate it? This one's a little bit different. Heck yes. In trousers. Sparkles around trousers. It's trousers, guys. Trousers. I don't know how they made trousers sound like the gayest descriptor, but they managed it. He managed it. I think I have a conscience. What is that?
I need your help. I need you to pull the strip off.
Oh, I get to... Is it because I told you I like pulling the cardboard strip off things? Yes. Oh, okay. Thank you. Hold on. I gotta open a pizza box. Yeah. It's satisfying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I didn't get... No, it didn't separate all the way. I gotta separate it.
All right.
Thank you for letting me do that here. You can have that back. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Trousers and boots? I know. I like the peelies. I like pulling the cardboard tabs off things. And I like it when you get like, you know, like a new screen protector and you pull the peely off. Or you get a sticker and you peel the back off of it. And you... Yes! Yes! But they're like American though, so I'm doing like, because almost all of them are American. So, except technically, Boom is the only one that's foreign. Even Mink is from New York, and I just think it's really funny. He's like, "Where are you from?" And she's like, "New York." She's not, technically she's Korean, but she's from New York. Like, she's not from Korea. The only one that's actually from any other place is Boom. Which I think is funny. They're all American. They're like, oh shit, American lesbians in boots. And it's the worst thing ever. But they're some of my favorite characters. They're kind of badass. There's a couple other minor cast and crew that shows up in a little bit here very shortly. That are like in the same sort of camp as Elizabeth, but not really. It's a little weird, but very fun. You get more of them as they go along. They don't go away. It's not like they're staying with the train now and then they get kicked off. You'll see, but they stick around. So. It's the only time I've cheered for Americans. Is in this particular instance. But it's very fun. I thought you guys would like them as characters whenever we got here. Yes! The American lesbians show up with their myriad of guns. I just like that they're all Americans and they're just packed to the hilt with every kind of gun. Submachine gun, pistols, shotguns. They have the entire gamut of everything because they're American. I just think that's a fun stereotype. As far as stereotypes go. That's the only one that I enjoy. Yes, ladies. Okay, yeah, no. She comes back. Zarenia comes back. Not in this book, but I will tell you she does feature heavily in the next one. In the last one, she comes back. So, very fun times. Very fun times. Oh no, Insomniac's leaving. Yes, Insomniac has to get up super early. So, who's ready for our next segment? Cat facts. Cat facts. Cat facts. Are we all about cat facts? Who wants cat facts? So, whoever pops in right at this juncture is going to be very confused. No one new come in at this juncture. Because, no. Okay. Now, this one's quite a long segment, so we're going to be breaking it up into pieces because they were supposed to be little segments. So this is going to be a couple sections spread over a few weeks of mythological cats. And today we're going to start that and how cats feature heavily in mythology and religion. So we're going to do one per week is how I decided to do that. Because it's quite a long segment. As you can imagine, there's a lot of pantheons that feature cat-heavy nonsense, which is fantastic. I love cat-heavy nonsense. But not all in one run, and not after I've read for almost 2 hours. So, we're just going to do one little piece at a time. And this week, we're going to do Ammit. Okay. Ammit is one of the Egyptian goddesses of death in the underworld, with the head of a crocodile, half the torso of a lion, and half the torso of a hippopotamus. In ancient Egypt, these were the most threatening species. According to their beliefs, Ammit ate the hearts of those deemed unworthy to pass into the afterlife. Remember that bodily integrity was vital to how the Egyptians viewed the afterlife, and they preserved all vital organs of those who were mummified. Anubis was the god of death and the weighing of souls, but it was Ammit who carried out the consequences, making her a kind of Grim Reaper figure within the Egyptian pantheon. And then someone, there's a picture. Yes. They're little doodles. I looked up some cooler pictures online before this, though, and they were really dope. It's not what you would conceptually think of as like a strict definition of cat, but I'm like, oh, I want one. But then again, the next week is Barong, and that one is less like a definition of a cat than Ammit is. So I'm like, well, that one's good. They say it's a cat. Picture does not look like a cat. But we're going to get into some crazy stuff. I've read ahead. You know I have. I've dug into this book. And it was all made possible by Ray. Thank you, Ray, for the cat book. I will thank you every single time we read some of it. This is going to last forever, and we're going to do it all the time because cats are life. And thank you for the cat book. Thank you for all my cat things. I like all my cat stuff. My cat stuff makes me happy. It makes me happy when I get cat stuff. And thank you, because you don't have to do all that. But I love it when I get cat stuff. So appreciate it. So thank you, Ray, for the cat book. And I hope Insomniac got that. But if they didn't, that's okay. I'm sure they'll probably hear it on the YouTube or something later. I'm upset. If anyone's day, I think, could possibly be made better with random cat facts, I feel it's probably Insomniac. So. How y'all doing? Did I make you tired? Sound off. Who's still awake? Oh, okay. Thank you, Lady Aoife. I hope you have a good day tomorrow. And also, thank you for the coffee. You know I appreciate it. You are because you slept all day. Man, I bet that was luxurious. There's nothing like just day sleeping when you don't have anything to do and you don't have to worry about anything. And you're like, I could legit sleep all day. And then you do that. Because sometimes I'm like, I'm going to take a nap. And then I can't take a nap. And I would love dearly to take a nap. And I get home from therapy and I'm like, you know what would be great? A nap. And then I try to lay down. And then you don't get a nap. And then you're like, but I'm going to sleep really good tonight. And then you try and go to bed at night. And then that doesn't work either. And then you're up half the night. And then you get a TikTok from someone that says that maybe you can't sleep because there's too many people asleep on the earth all at the same time. And you're just put on a wait list and you can't sleep until someone else wakes up. And then you think about that for another hour and a half. Sometimes that happens. It's the worst. Thank you for the tiny dinosaur. I just noticed that. Sorry, I was spacing out thinking about my sleep problems. It's not a great TikTok to receive from someone who also has insomnia and is like, hey, this made me think of you. And I was like, up at 8:30 in the morning, watching it and like, maybe that's why. Maybe that's why. Your name's at the bottom because if we go alphabetically by TikTok handle, so you're in the S's. You see, you should have just used your name, which would put you up at the top header of the alphabet under D. You gotta swap it so you're higher up on the. And then I'm in U, so like Undertaker, it's all the way at the bottom of the wait list. So, ayo. That's why we're at the bottom of the wait list. Bye. I hope you have a good night. How do you explain you? Crimson? You know what? That's a good... Never mind. I don't... Now it's, maybe it's because you have no secondary part of your tag, and it doesn't qualify unless you have a last, like, first name Anxious, last name Undertaker, Jennifer, Swiftblood, and then you're just Crimson, so you're not on the list at all, maybe. Maybe that's it. You didn't get put on there at all. Maybe this is how we die. Maybe this is how we go. You know that one Italian family that just never slept until they all died? Maybe we're all distantly related sometime, and then sometime at a random time in our 40s, we'll never fall asleep again, and then we'll die. Forget I said that. Cut that from the record, actually. Can I edit this out? Oh, no. Okay. No, don't say that. Nope. No. It's a bad destiny. It's not great. I love that. Yes, no. I don't agree to this. I'm not co-signing this. I don't co-sign what came out of my own mouth. So, look, I've seen my family. What? Yeah. Hey, we can still die, just die after you. Technically, though, that might be a really long time considering, your extended lifespan. I suppose you'll just have to keep me alive. You're the Fae. You can do that, right? You need me. This is how I have ensured my own longevity, is by making myself have connections. Sure. Yeah, no. Yeah. Sure you are. But as far as the narrative goes, this isn't canon. But uncanonically, I have made myself indispensable with the Fae. Uncanonically. Food restrictions. What? I don't have food restrictions. Restrictions. Oh, no. No dietary restrictions necessarily. What? Cookies. Oh, and the redacted. Oh, okay. And a demon. And a demon. No. I have... This is all just going to be put on my resume when I get to hell. Why did I say that? It's getting late. Cookies. Yeah, my brain also was like, I'm sorry, what just happened? Cookies? I'm very confused. My mosquito bites are itching up. I gotta stop scratching it, but they're all over my arm. It's really washed out because of the light, but they are all over my arm. Sure. Yes. I accept that narrative. I believe that you believe that. And I also would like an ingredients list of the cookies. Crimson also being like, I also need an ingredient list. Don't be suspicious. Cue the Parks and Rec audio. Ray, I don't know if that's an endorsement or not. Are we endorsing the cookies? What are the emojis about? Is that an endorsement? Are you sure? We'll see. I don't know. I'm not a big cookie person on the regular, but would Dave love cookies? Absolutely. He goes absolutely spare for cookies. Give them a rating based on cats. What, like 2 out of 5 cats? Or, like, what are we doing? Oh, thank you for the rose. I appreciate it. But, oh, okay. Good night. Just like that, like with the coffee. Egyptian Mao out of Tabby. Alright. Okay. Cat ratios, just like with the coffee. I can't wait to try this coffee. I'm gonna have to make something with this coffee. I'm so excited about this one. So excited about this one. I have so much coffee. I don't. And what's worse is I was legit on Instagram like the other day, and like a company I've been meaning to try for a really long time just released their Halloween line, and I was like, I want to try it. I'm like, you don't even need that. You don't even have space to put that coffee anywhere. What are you gonna do with it when you get it? And I'm like, but coffee gremlin brain want the coffee. And I'm like, that doesn't, you can't just, where are you gonna put it? Where are you gonna put it? You're running out of cabinet space. You can't do that. You have 1 bag of Bushwhacker in the freezer. Like, what do you mean? Oh, okay. We can get you space. No, not the cabinet idea again. We can't get another cabinet. There is no cabinet space. I don't know where to put another cabinet. I can't fit it on top of this wall. Y'all are tripping. So, I don't really know where else I'm going to put it. And the thing is that I am almost out of some of the bags. I'm almost out of the Domingo one that Lady Aoife sent me, which is phenomenal. Put a little bit of caramel syrup in there, and then you can drink that shit straight black, because like it's got like a spicy undertone, but like a hazelnut flavor, and then you add just a little bit of caramel in it, and it's so good. So good. And then I'm almost out of the pumpkin one that Swiftblood sent me, because that one's really good. And I'm always in a fall mood, so like anything that has like that in it, it's a pretty good pumpkin. It was probably one of the best pumpkin flavors that I've ever had. So good. And that one's almost gone. Just in time for Halloween. No, I just like constantly experiment. So like all the coffee is also kind of a good thing, because I'm constantly like mixing stuff and like doing different experiments with stuff. And I'm like, I have a like different selection of like syrups and types of cup, and like different creamers and like stuff like that I play around with. And sometimes like cinnamon and chocolate shavings and whipped cream and like all sorts of stuff. And I don't normally go like crazy with it, because in my opinion, more often, like the coffee trend now, at least from what I see on TikTok all the time, is to go absolutely overboard. And to me, I'll like watch people make this and I'm like, oh, like my gut churns because it's too sweet. Like whenever I put anything that has an amount of sugar in it, like a type of creamer or something, I limit what I put in there, and I normally ratio it out with oat milk or more coffee or a stronger brewed coffee, or I'll make something with espresso because I know it'll be bolder. Mainly because a lot of the trend now is to make it almost overly sweet to where I can't drink that. So I don't know how well mine would go over, because mine are normally not super sweet like a lot of other people's are, which is normally why I don't really share them, because I feel like they're not going to be super great for everyone's palate. I am very much on like the tannin end of the spectrum, you know, where like if we're talking about like an alcohol base, and this translates, I promise, but like people who enjoy like the bitterness or more black end of coffee, are people who also enjoy really dark or heavy red wine, like a Merlot, something with a lot of tannins in it. And there are people who are also the opposite. Like for me, I can't drink anything like sangria. Like I just can't. I can't drink a lot of white wine or like fruity or red wine. I can't do it. It will give me almost an immediate headache. It tastes like I'm drinking syrup. I can't make it through it. So like if we're talking about drinks, I make a lot of my coffee a lot stronger than I think a lot of people make theirs. And I don't add a whole lot of sugar or anything to it. So yeah, see, I can't. And I feel like that's the trend, though. Probably, yeah, I guess I could do it as like a Shinzo thing. But it was. Yeah, and there's some like borderline to where I can have them and like I'm like, okay, I can have like a glass of this and appreciate it or something like that. But once it hits towards like heavy sangria, like end of the spectrum, I'm not great on. I'm gonna admit I have like all of my wines are dark reds, like a Merlot or like a heavy Bordeaux or something like that. I do use, well, almost all creamers are sweet. So like I'll like ratio it out. I'm not gonna lie, right now, what I do, I have 3 shot glasses, 3. One dad gave me, one Swift Blood gave me, one maybe gave me. And I keep those up in a rotation, and I'll put like half a shot glass worth of creamer in there and add it to like a full 8 ounces or more of coffee. And I'll add like oat milk or something like that to it. But I don't, and when I use like syrup and stuff like that, same deal. I don't add a whole lot. So like, I don't know if they would be to everyone's taste, but I suppose I could do it as like a Shinzo bit if anybody wanted to see it. It'd be really cool to make some actual content with a lot of the coffee you guys send me, because it's really good. But I'm always like really self-conscious that someone else is gonna, like, there's gonna be a bunch of people that are like, this tastes nasty and this is really bitter. Like, yeah, that's how I like it. Maybe you should experiment and find out how you like it. An energy drink at 10:30 p.m.? Okay. I mean, alright, you do you. Yeah, like I like to add the flavor, but I don't like to add all of the sugar that comes into it. So most of the time, I overbalance that with it. My coffee is like 80% coffee, and then like 5%, and then like 15% oat milk. But there's only like a tiny portion of it that's like extra flavor because I don't want to make it too sweet. That's true. That's true. Not everyone would like it, but for people who do like it, I don't know. Anyway, I might try that because I like making coffee for fun. It depends on the season and like what kind of mood I'm in. But I'm also very cold natured most of the time. So hot coffee is always something that I really like, specifically in the morning, unless it's boiling lava summer hot outside. And then it's like the one I just drank was iced coffee. Obviously, it's later in the day, it's hot as shit. So I make a lot of my coffee iced in the summer, but in the winter, I'll make it a lot more hot. Drink iced coffee, panic attack. Okay, so like one time I went to see Nodi and they were drinking the hot coffee, and because, okay, when it's like a decent temperature outside, my preference is normally to drink it hot. And Nodi's preference is to always have it cold. And one time I showed up and they were drinking a hot coffee and I was like, are you okay? Are you sure? Who hurt you? And they were like, it's just a hot coffee. It's not a big deal. I was like, it's not a big deal. It is a big deal. I can see it all over your face. Where is Dickie? Dickie's at his house. Yeah, I think he's at his house. Probably sleeping. He has to work in the morning. But I think we're probably gonna do some more content maybe next week. I have to touch base. But oh, thank you for the compliment. I appreciate it. Have I ever had taro? Yeah. It's alright. Precisely. Yeah, it was super weird. I came over there, he was drinking a hot coffee, I got concerned. And then one time, I showed up with an iced coffee, and Nodi was like, are you okay? And I was like, it's just really hot. And they were like, sure it is. And I was like, you want to check my car? I have another one for when it gets colder. And they were like, yes. I was like, it's in a thermos, it's hot. It's a hot cot. And they were like, okay. Oh, this is Bartholomew. He's my cat. He's my kitten cat. My other actual live cats don't normally come in here while I'm... Sometimes Pond will nose her way through the door. I really expected her to do it right as I said that. Yeah, normally I keep the door closed because she'll come in here and headbutt the ring light until it falls down. Sometimes I do content with my cat, but not all the time. Pond likes the camera too much. Bella hates the camera, so it's really hard to get shots with them in it. Pond is good. I'm in the process of switching their cat food right now, so we're monitoring her very closely. But I wanted to give her something with a better protein content now that I can afford it. So we're slowly switching her food. But she's doing good. She's been really extra, especially the last 2 days. She's been knocking stuff off all the counters. She's a princess. She does normally Kool-Aid Man through the door. You know this. Yeah, oh, no. Hot topic. Hot topic. You can find this sweater. Cat. It's the Kiki's Delivery Service section. In the Ghibli section they have going on right now. Yeah. I'm pretty sure you can still find it online. They still had it last time I checked. And then I know they have it in my store here. But they have a whole Ghibli section released right now. So it's like, yes. I was so stoked when I saw it. I bought it like on the spot. I was like, you're coming home with me. So yeah, highly recommend. Yeah. It's so comfortable too. It's as comfortable as it looks. I can't take it off. Can't take it off. It's so comfortable. It's my new favorite thing to wear. I didn't even know it had the ears until I left the store with it. I was just really excited about the extra everything else. And then I took it home and I was like, this thing has ears on it. This thing has cat ears on it. Mac in here being the conservative adult. I don't mean conservative in the pejorative. I mean it in a literal. I wanted to let you know that. Yeah, Pirate Shinzo. Dude, yes. Limited access to the brain cell. All the same, as far as I know, like they're not going anywhere anytime soon, because this was the release for their fall lineup, so it should be there all through the fall, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not going anywhere anytime soon. You have time to like get it. But yeah, you have plenty of time to get it if you need to wait for Ren Fair stuff or whatever. I'm really enjoying the back and forth in the comments section of save your money, but things. This is getting wild. God, in all caps now. We're really hitting it. I've sown dissension among a whole friendship with one sweater. Fantastic. No, I'm joking. Oh no. There's a whole level happening right now. I'm sure there are plenty of there's plenty of these. Like, they're not, this is fast fashion. It's not an Etsy shop. Calm down. They're not going to sell out in 2 minutes. I'm sure there's enough for everybody. And yes, do I generally try to not contribute to fast fashion? Yes, but look at this thing. Kitty ears. Come on. Look at it. Look at it. Look at it. It's so fun. I should also do a review, because I bought every Hitoshi Shinzo cup on Etsy with the exception of one shop. And I should do a review on the cups, because I'm really picky with cups. But I have gotten literally every Shinzo cup that I've found on Etsy. And I'm like, maybe I should do a review on TikTok of which one is penultimately my favorite, I guess. I don't know. The coffee in the cup review. Should think about making that a thing. I'm not sure. We'll see. I'll see. Part of me is like, no one wants to see your dumb shit. But I frequently have that thought. I made a whole video today where I was like, nobody's gonna care about this apart from me. I worked on an audio for hours and I'm like, nobody's gonna care. But did I care? Absolutely. That audio made me cry. When I found this audio, it was straight up, I had to take it, I had to do a whole bunch of work to get it, because it was originally an audio interview on a podcast. And I was like, oh, other kids had this happen to them. Sort of. Their scenario was a whole lot worse than mine. And I was like, I need this audio. This is the whole reason why I kin Shinzo, and I need this audio. And so I worked like hell to get this audio. It took me forever. Oh, I get, you'll probably see it later this week, because I did actually get the video done. It's hard to describe, but it was an interview done with a Waco survivor. Like, legitimately, I'll drop the podcast in, I'll drop the podcast in the video when I post it, but they were talking about their experience after escaping Waco, as a small child, and how they were put through the system and stuff, because when her mother smuggled her out of Waco, she had a note in her pocket saying that she wanted to grant her sister, her child's older sister, her daughter, custody of the child she smuggled out. And the system wouldn't let her, like, have her for a very long time. And they put her through a bunch of therapy and psychiatrist, and, like, there was a therapist at one point who told her sister that she was going to grow up to not be able to be integrated into society, and that she was going to grow up to be the next Unabomber. And said that in front of her. And, like, how that affected her, and how she was like, I really wanted that to not be true, so I worked really hard to not be a mass murderer. Like, and it was just a really, like, tense interview, but, like, I was like, oh man, other kids were told that. Because I had that experience as a child. But the difference is, like, in addition to therapists who also told me that I had, like, psychopathy. I didn't. I just had PTSD. Minor PTSD talk. No abuse talk or anything. But minor trigger warning. But my mother would frequently tell me that I would overhear her talking about me, and I would hear her say things. One time she was on the phone with my aunt, and she said that if my head ever turned all the way around, she was going to get rid of me, and stuff like that. That she said with her full chest, like, not like, haha, this is a joke. Like, she fully meant it. She thought I was a demon, and I didn't. I was just an abused kid. And so one of the reasons I heavily empathize with Shinzo is because he was also treated very much like he wasn't a good person from the get. Even though he was like, no, I'm not. This is just what I was born with, and this is what I grew up with. And I'm a product of it, but I don't have to be defined by it. And I really like that because it's heavily my own experience. And so I also went through a lot of therapy with my own therapist that wasn't picked out by my mom, that didn't give me 101 diagnoses and different sets of pills that turned me into a zombie and a weirdo and destroy my appetite and destroy my diet. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you for the roses. But I went to a therapist that I controlled and that I paid for and didn't report to my mom. And, I got told, like, no, your mother is a narcissist and you're going to be okay. And I am okay. And thank you for the roses. It's still happening. I'm unsure what's going on. Anyway, this audio, like, really heavily, like, I had to stop my car. I was like, I gotta stop my car. So I stopped my car, and I was like, I gotta find this audio. I'm gonna sit here and cry for a second, and then I'm gonna get over it, and then I'm gonna live my life. Jeez, what is going on? Thank you for the roses. I don't know what's happening. Thank you. What's going on? I don't understand. I appreciate it. Thank you, Swiftblood. How do you do that? You do the thing? The cool heart, like the cool kids. Thank you. Thank you for all the roses. I really appreciate it. But I'll tag the podcast in the video when I drop it. And then you can find it. I'll share the episode number because I don't know what it is right now. I'd have to go look it up, and I closed my laptop earlier. And I can't check it on my phone because we're using my phone. So thank you, Mac. I appreciate you. But I'll drop that so you can find it. And you can, if you want, it's never bothered me when people do this to my stuff, but I know some cosplayers don't like it. But if you like the audio and you want to use it, after I post it, you can take it and you can do your own version since you're a Shinzo cosplayer. I was gonna do the zombie look from the haunted house this year because I did Villain Shinzo last year. So I didn't want to do Villain Shinzo again unless people really want to see it. I might do a couple as Villain Shinzo since people really liked it. People have done fan art of it and I really like that. But yeah, no, that's never bothered me. I know some cosplayers don't like it when you do that, but I've never really, of course, like, cosplayers have like a limited field of vision, right? And a lot of us follow each other. And just because of canon characterizations, a lot of the same character end up doing a lot of the same audios because it fits the character. So it's never really bothered me. If you want to do your own version, I always support that. And I do get a lot of other ideas from other Shinzo cosplayers, but that's one of the things that I don't do because I know that some people get really upset over that now. So, like, I stopped largely doing the same audios as other ones, but it's never bothered me. So, and I like to see other people doing other versions of that. I feel like it's unfortunate that all of us have fallen into, like, this weird habit of, like, calling other people out. Like, you stole this idea from them. It's like, it's an audio platform. It's an audio platform. They're not stealing it. They're doing it. They're doing their own version. So I fully support that. If you want to take the audio and do your own version, I'd be really interested to see it because I love it. Villain Shinzo and Zombie Shinzo. Yeah, I might do some more of Villain Shinzo because I did get into it not too long ago. And did like one video with it and then took it back off, and I was like, man, this was such a big hit last year, I might do it again. But in the same token, I was like, new idea, get a new idea like every single year and do a different one. Yeah, people are gonna have similar ideas because it's a similar character. Like, I just feel like there's such a nature of, like, people being like, you just stole this idea from... It's like, you can't even guarantee that. They probably just found the same audio and had the same thought because it's the same character. And everybody who's emotionally connected to that character is going to hear, like, an audio that's like, oh, I can definitely use it for this character. Because it works. Not because they're stealing it, but because it fits. Do it. Do it. I've had so many instances where, like, I was like, should I do this? And then I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it because I had this idea. And, like, I don't know if you've ever been in this spot, but I've been in this spot multiple times where I will have, like, an audio saved and an idea for a video, and I'll go to do it. And then before I get there, I'm scrolling, and I'll see another Shinzo do the exact same, maybe not idea that I had, but the same audio at least. And I'm like, now if I post mine, I'll be copying. And I feel like that's such a roadblock for people. And I've never considered it copying, but I know there was one time where someone was like, you just copied what this Shinzo did. And I was like, oh, okay, so we're here. And then I've noticed other people going through that as well, where they were told, like, you're just copying this person. It's like, no, we're just cosplaying the same character. It doesn't, like, and I know, like, Ready, Set, Roses was, like, a big thing on this for a while. I don't think they really do it anymore. I haven't seen any of them. But they used to do a Mechanic Shinzo bit. Well, I actually know how to work on cars. And people have told me to do the same thing, but actually teach people about cars. And I'm like, I don't think I can do that, can I? And it's such a shame because I actually know how to do stuff. And people were like, no, seriously, I want Shinzo to help me change my alternator. And I'm like, I know exactly how to change your alternator. You just take the fan out. No, but I know how to actually do work on cars because I need my car for my job, and I've needed my car for my job for 5 years now. And I drive hundreds of miles a day. So I have stuff go wrong with my car almost constantly. And you can't afford to always take it to a shop. So you do learn most of it yourself. I can change my serpentine belt in under 15 minutes. I can change an alternator in about an hour and a half. And I know how to change my spark plugs in about 15 to 20 minutes too. But then you're stuck in this position of people are going to come onto your page and just be like, oh, you just copied this. It's like, no, I thought they had a really good idea, but I actually know how to do stuff, and I thought it might be helpful. But I don't ever like to lock people into a box, and if you want to do the same audio as me, or if you have another similar video or that you want to do that's similar to my content, do it. Duet me when you do it. I'll come onto your page. I'll probably like the video. I've never found a problem with that. I think it's more fun when we all communally work together. I mean, it's different if someone was saving my videos and then uploading them onto their page as their content. Then I would consider it stealing. But taking the same audio, doing the same audio, having the same similar idea, or costume, or style, those are still yours ideas implemented in a different way. It's fun. I'm excited for this Pirate Shinzo nonsense. That sounds fun. I'm here for it. Yeah, do it. I had an idea for a witch Shinzo at one point, and then I had like half the idea together, and then I started releasing content for it, and then other people were also doing it, and then someone told me, and then I stopped doing it. It was really fun because I already have like so much. I have a giant broom on the back of my door. Like I've had a cloak forever, like a giant purple cloak. I have bones in jars. I have weird syringes, animal skulls, the whole nine in this room alone. Slytherin Shinzo is awesome. Well, as you can tell, I'm part of the community. Same in our house. We love a good Shinzo in this house. Make time, Swiftblood. No, I'm joking. I can't say that. I have no time either. I understand. I never have time. I try to cram everything into one day. Also, who said they wanted to do Todoroki? I had like a dragon kind of look I was doing for like a Has-Been Hotel concept idea. But I never really considered doing it with Shinzo. I don't know. Mainly because, like, I don't really have any ideas for a Dragon Shinzo. That doesn't really seem... Dragon doesn't necessarily correlate with Shinzo in my mind. They're, like, two separate categories. If I were to see him as anything, it'd be a siren. Just with his power alone. Like, if I were to pick a mythological creature that I would most likely correlate one with the other, it'd be siren. I could get down with that. I have seen a couple, and I'm like, okay, that's neat, but I myself don't have any ideas for it. You know what I mean? I've seen one Siren Shinzo, and I was like, okay, that was dope. Was it Rose? Or was it someone else? I thought they did because I know they did like a dragon Shinzo. But I don't know if they did a siren. If they did I don't think it was them that I saw. It was someone else who did a really cool one. Yeah, because I know I've seen them do a dragon, but I haven't seen them do a siren. I saw someone else do a siren. Unless they're just really good at looking completely different, which I always recognize Rose, I feel like, when they come up. Did they get their account back? Sorry, I don't know. I'm not on the up and up, and a lot of content that I'm seeing recently has been suppressed, and I've had to go looking for my favorite cosplayers, which is of crying shame, because most of my following is cosplay, and I don't get them on my following page. I'm about to delete everybody but the cosplayers because this shit getting ridiculous. Thank you for the roses, I appreciate it. But I know I had to look up some of my favorite cosplayers recently because I hadn't seen any of their content. And I was like, where did Thistle go? Like, where did Enigma Gay Present Mics go? Like, what's happening? Where did Boogie Be Cosplaying go? I don't know where they all went, and I'm mad about it. Thank you for the roses. I really appreciate them. I'm so glad Rose got their account back, though, because I meant to check up on that the other day, but I got sunk into a hole. Because I went to go look up, I was looking up, oh God, what is his name? I cannot think of his handle right now. But, Black Eye does a really good cyborg cosplay. I cannot think of his handle right now. But I was looking up him and I was like, where did he go? And especially black cosplayers, I feel like, have been affected by the suppression. Because there's also a Spy Family cosplayer that I follow that I couldn't follow. And, no, it wasn't Jin. It was a different one. I do like their content, though, too. I should check them out because I haven't seen any of their work now that I realize it. Anyway. Like, unless they're like a really, really big top tier cosplayer, I have not seen them. And I'm like, where'd all my peeps go? Where'd all my smaller mid-level account level peeps go? Where did the peeps go? And it's just been very frustrating. But yeah, I have. I'm trying to remember his handle and I can't remember it. It's fine, it'll come to me. But I had to. It's in my recent search history, actually. If I could check my search history right now, I would know it, but I would have to end this live to do it. So, but I know there's like been a lot of content suppression recently, and a lot of like the smaller cosplayers that I used to see, especially at least on my following page. Not necessarily on my For You page as much, but on my following page, I would always see them. and I don't see them anymore. You did. Okay, yes, you. Yes, you. Cosplay Todoroki. Just do it. Just have fun. Life's too short. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what you look like. Doesn't matter if someone else did it first. Doesn't matter if someone else is also doing it that you think will do it better than you. I can list 5 Shinzos off the top of my head right now that I think are way better than me. And that doesn't really stop me because I'm having fun doing something that I enjoy doing. It doesn't really matter. And it doesn't really matter what people say or what people think of it. If they like it, if they don't, doesn't matter. And in fact, you should follow people who are better than you, or you feel like are better than you, because you can get ideas from how they do stuff. Sometimes they'll post like how they did like a certain camera shot or transition and stuff like that, and like you can learn how to make your content what you want it to be. Yeah, see, I was like finding a really cool Shinzo cosplayer because then I'm like, oh, that's a cool mask. Like, I bet I could do something like that. And you're like, I bet it would be better if you did this. And like the magnet thing I learned from like a Shinzo cosplayer who was like, I put magnets in the wig and I put magnets in the mask and then I just clap it on my face. And I was like, yes, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that so hard. I have the magnets on the table right now. I just haven't had time. No, she's not in here, but it might be right outside the door. But you learn a lot of stuff, especially with people who cosplay the same character as you. You can learn how they made their stuff a lot of the time and make your content better and what you want to see from your stuff. And a lot of the time it can feel kind of demoralizing when you sort of see your content and you find other people who are doing it better, but when you really delve into how they did that and you can make yours what you want it to be and feel proud about yourself and have a fun time along the way, like that's still an achievement. You're still moving. Maybe not at the other pace people expect you to, maybe at the pace you expected you to. But you can always have fun doing it. And the biggest regret will be not doing it at all. So cosplay Todoroki, and that's all I'm going to say. Yes, it is smart. Anyway, sorry. Credit goes to this other random Shinzo that I found that I know is in my liked list. But yeah, I got some magnets on the desk. Like, make sure to get like a weight that is bigger than what you think you need, like 7-pound weight. And then you can put them in. I have little pouches that I'm going to put my magnets in and glue them to the inside of the pouches. And then sew the little pouches into the lining of the wig. And then when you put the wig on, you glue the other magnets with a good adhesive onto the white parts of the mask. Where's my mask? Oh, my mask's over here. And then you just clap them next to the pouches that are above your ears in the wig, and then it will just like poof. Make sure you position it before you glue them all or sew those in, though, to be noted. You can absolutely do fan art for my cats. I would love to see that. Oh, my cats are beautiful. But, yeah, magnets for your mask. I'm so into it. I highly advise it. From Shinzo to Shinzo. Yeah, and like mine has like Velcro on the back, and the Velcro is already failing. I haven't even had this mask that long, and I haven't worn it outside of cosplay use, so I'm not just running around in it, like misusing it all day every day. But the Velcro is already failing on one of the straps, and it's driving me crazy every time I go to put it on. And I found that video and I was like, oh, why did this not occur to me before? I have so many magnets in this house right now. I gotta actually sit down and do it, but when I do it, because I know, like, the magnets on the mask are gonna be one thing. The inserts on the wig is gonna be the kicker. I'm gonna be real mad. I don't know how when I was younger I would sew for fun. Because I hate it now. Tactical belt buckle. I'd ask you to explain, but I'm just going to ask you after this because I feel like it'll get lost in text and I won't completely understand what you mean. But I'm interested in the tactical belt buckle situation. I'm with it. I want to know. I want to know all the things. If it can make my cosplay better, I want to do it. I've learned so much stuff this last year. It's been wild. Just started out with me doing goofy shit, and now I know how to, like, edit audio and sync audio and run a stereo recorder from inside my own computer to record content and then fucking upload it all to my phone just for TikTok to not accept it because it's over a minute long. I had to run on my YouTube. Has all the previous chapters of the book that we've been reading, and also the other 3 books in question, all read by me out loud. And a lot of the time when the live would be disrupted, like sometimes TikTok just won't let me download it. It'll be like, you can't have your own content. And I'm like, cool. I would record the audio separately. Well, when I record the audio in my own house, you can't really pick it up on the microphone that works with my phone. But there are birds in the next room, and I have a higher strength microphone that works better with the audio on my computer, but it picks up every sound in this house. And I need to eventually soundproof this room, but I haven't gotten the money to do it. But you can hear the birds all the way through the audio. It's super distracting. So I learned to take royalty-free audio, basically, and sync it up as one track overlaid onto the reading bit. So it has, like, ambient noise in the background instead of my bird squawking. Yeah, we have book club on Tuesdays every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Central. Now, there's like an entire 3 books we've read in book club from the time that I've done it. But I had to learn how to do all that. I didn't know how to do all that before I started this. I didn't know what I was doing. Yes, someone got shot on the street behind me like a couple weeks back, and it picked up the shot, and I was like, what? Which was not cool. I have a blooper reel where I was recording audio for the last chapter, and Pond walks in, and you can hear me stop and go, what the fuck? And then there's like a pause, and then you just hear Pond meow really loudly into the microphone, and then I just lost it. I saved that audio. So. Oh, really? Oh, I'll have to find it. I didn't know someone had duetted me. I've been bullshitting my way through TikTok nonsense all day. Yes. I'll have to find it. Yes. 9 p.m. Eastern. Okay. Central. I switch between Eastern and Central a lot, so I frequently forget which one is my time zone. And I'm like, I'm Eastern, no Central. So I switch between them far too much to be... The thing is, everybody calls me Toshi too, including almost everyone. Even my coworkers do, so I always have the spot where I think people are talking to me if they say Toshi. So, 8 Central. There we go. Thank you for knowing my own time zone better than me, because I can't stay in one long enough to remember what time it is. Yeah, everyone in here calls me Toshi, and then everyone in my actual life started calling me Toshi because I know Noti Bean, and they were telling everyone that my name is Toshi. Everybody got really confused, and then everybody just started calling me Toshi because they didn't like my name anyway, apparently, or so I was told. So now everybody just calls me Toshi. All the time. Everyone, both in real life and on TikTok, calls me Toshi. Anybody calls me by my real name, I get confused. It was all Noti Bean's fault. So now everybody just calls me Toshi. It's not that big of a deal because I didn't like my name either, so it didn't really matter. I'd prefer them all to keep my name out their mouth, but no. I don't really have friends, I just have coworkers, so like most of the time, I don't even know why they're talking to me. They shouldn't be. I take that back. Jasmine's my friend. And Dad. Dad and Jasmine are the only ones who are allowed to talk to me. No. That cishet egg and cheese McBigot at work keeps trying to talk to me about my tires. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm like,